Good morning and a very warm African spring. Welcome to our online discussion on pathways to a circular economy as part of Team Europe's Climate Diplomacy Week. Now, today's discussion is presented by the embassies of Finland, Sweden, and Lithuania in South Africa. If you have no idea what a circular economy is, then hold onto your hats or maybe rather your headset and be prepared to be blown away by the possibilities for a post-COVID future that you will discover during this conversation. Now, we have brilliant speakers today from the southern tip of Africa all the way up into the polar region. And it's going to be a fast-paced program. We are going to start with 5 speakers looking at the transition to a circular economy in the EU and in South Africa. And each speaker will have 10 minutes each, and then after that, we will have a short discussion. So keep your questions ready. Then we will have a short break before session 2 starts. Also, please look out for the questions in our online poll and let us know your thoughts. So let's jump in. Let me just make sure if our first speaker, Mr. Schumacher, is available.
Hello, sorry, yeah, not yet. I mean, but I think she's trying to connect. She should be connected in a minute or 2.
No problem.
She's in the process.
Okay, so then we will give her a chance, and then after that we are going to hear from Mr. Gautam Mokoena, who is the Chief Director of Chemicals and Waste Policy and Evaluation and Monitoring at the South African Department of Environment, Forestry and Fisheries. And then we have 3 more speakers before our first discussion. Director for Global Sustainable Development at the European Commission's Directorate General for the Environment, a mouthful. You can read her profile on your screen, and she is going to talk to us about the circular economy and the green recovery. So we'll just give her a few more seconds to Okay, if we have issues there, we can shift maybe to our second speaker. Mr. Mokoena, would you be ready to go first? And then we will just swap you and our first speaker. Fantastic. So just again, Mr. Mokoena, he is the Chief Director of Chemicals and Waste Policy Evaluation and Monitoring at the South African Department of Environment, Forestry and Fisheries, and he will chat to us on how to approach the implementation of a circular economy in South Africa. Mr. Mokoena, over to you. Mr. Mokoena, I just want to make sure that you are unmuted.
Thank you very much, Program Director. I'm happy to be making a contribution to the discussion. As you would notice that we are going through the COVID-19 pandemic, hence the engagement and the intervention through virtual means. Largely on the approach to circular economy implementation in South Africa. So hence the slide that is before us is largely indicating how are we doing circular economy in South Africa. Circular economy entails gradual decoupling of economic activity from consumption of finite resources and designing waste out of a system to ensure that it's no longer waste, but it is a resource. This introduces linkages and joining parts, making waste management systems circular as opposed to disjointed and fragmented. But similarly, the issue of population size growth and the generation of waste increasing. The linkages are understood if you look at the World Bank report, but also the sustainable consumption imperatives linked to the population growth, as well as consequently the increase in the generation of waste. If you look at the State of Waste report of South Africa, circular economy is looking beyond the current take, make, and dispose kind of approach of extractive materials through industrial processes, and also a circular approach of making use of the products that are made from those extractive materials that would be extracted. So hence, sustainable way of looking at them. What underpins this transition from the take, make, and dispose is the use of renewable resources of energy, circular models, economic, natural, and social capital, which is based basically on, among other principles, the design for recyclability, keeping products and materials as long as possible, regenerating natural systems, which is quite a key aspects. If you look at the transition in South Africa in terms of policy and legislative environment, we're moving from an age on the left-hand side of landfill, where a lot of waste and material and legislation was around landfilling. But in the middle of the diagram, you see more the emergence of recycling and also recognition of the circular economy principles. It's safe to say that recently we're driving circular economy through extended producer responsibility, which is linked to a number of initiatives that we are currently busy with. So there is a range of legislative instruments that are depicted that starting from 1989 up to recently. In 1989, it was the old Legislation Environment Conservation Act, which had certain requirements for disposal, as I've indicated. But we're moving more towards more circularity, closing the loop, and also recognition of the contribution of extended producer responsibility. So hence, lately we have proposed extended producer responsibility regulations together with associated notices that are aimed at also contributing further to the implementation of circular economy. It is gathering a lot of momentum in the business world as well as through government cycles, and is seen as mechanism for profitable product development. In fact, if you talk to business, they say it makes business sense to implement circular economy. So hence it is well understood more from economic value of circularity in any value chain. There are collaborations in Africa, between Africa and other parts of the world, Europe, Asia. I know Latin America also is following through the establishment of the Circular Economy Alliance of Latin Americas, which we are trying to see how to can partner or benchmark with the Africa Circular Economy Alliance that is already being implemented and has programs that are already underway. The implementation of circular economy has a number of benefits, such as promoting sustainable use of material, job creation, growing the economies, most importantly so around this COVID-19 pandemic era. The benefits of small, medium, and micro enterprises cannot be overemphasized. Youth, women, and other designated groups' participation are quite key and also an opportunity through this circularity. The National Waste Management Strategy has circular economy among other principles that are there, the high waste hierarchy being one, as well as the polluter pays principles. On the left-hand side, you can see that at the bottom, we have that take, make, and dispose kind of a linear model, whereas at the top right-hand corner, we're looking at the resources and materials staying as long as possible in the loop through circular economy. These are some of the materials or products that find themselves in the rivers and the sea if not properly managed through circular economy. Hence, they get dumped and thrown away or washed away by the waters. Again, an element of pollution that ends up in the sea. For us to say, how do we best address it? The proposed EPR regulations that are alluded to already are accompanied by the notice as part of the EPR framework in South Africa, and the notices includes calling producers for lighting waste from electronical and electrical equipment, paper and packaging to establish or implement an EPR scheme or join an EPR scheme, conduct internal audits as well as external audits during that, more from good governance point of view, but also key in order to address the triple bottom challenges that we faced with in South Africa. The EPR scheme and circular economy should contribute to decent work creation, social cohesion, inclusive economic growth, as well as improve quality of life, largely because we have a number of informal sector participation or the waste pickers between 60 and 90,000 who are part of the sector waste, as well as contributing to circular economy through collecting waste material. Strategies include transitioning through shift to the waste hierarchy, basically recycling, repurposing, reuse, upcycling, among others, which are key. Redesign or design for recyclability, creating markets for products that will be generated through waste as a resource, but also partnerships, as I've indicated, the SA-EU Dialogue Facility. Some of the participants today are some of the strategic partners in these partnerships that are listed here. The Africa Alliance on Economy as one of those, where you find organizations such as the WEF, UNEP Finland, government, AFDB, JEF, EU, etc., participating. There is also the African Circular Economy Network, regional programs at government level, such as at AMCEN, as well as AU that talks to circular economy and emphasizing the role of the African Circular Economy Alliance, ramping up the implementation of circular economy in Africa. Hence, the public-private partnerships at national and local level are some of the strategies that help in the transition. I've mentioned the issue of waste hierarchy, but enabling policy and legislative environment is key. So hence the interventions or instruments I've mentioned, including the strategies, the notices, but the issue of research, development, and innovation is quite key in enabling science and evidence-based policy, but at the same time, best practices to say what is possible. And again, assessing the regulatory controls of either single-use plastics, such as straw, the cutlery, stirrers, etc., earbuds, for enabling alternatives and what can be beneficial for the environment. Cleanup campaigns to enable the collection of more and more materials so that those materials can be used for recycling purposes. These are some of the examples of materials that, if not managed through circular economy, find itself in the water bodies and in the sea, and hence the need for cleanups in those areas. Diverting waste through circular economy away from landfill, create these spheres, for instance, where you can, after use at household level, separate material, and also from separation, collect it, take it for processing through either pelletization, and then reuse that type of material in manufacturing of new products such as t-shirts, chairs, furniture, etc.
Sorry, Mr. Mokoena, we are, you're at your conclusion, so.
Yeah. Thank you. So the identification of opportunities is quite key, and accelerating adoption of circular economy is very important, as well as associated policies that are taking into account the economic recoveries during COVID-19 and post-COVID-19, and enabling resilience of economies during the COVID-19 period. So you find a lot of new products that are coming up. For instance, the manufacturing of masks from products that were waste before, materials that were waste before, a number of innovation coming into the fore. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mokoena. Sorry for interrupting you there, Realeboga Morena Mokoena. We have now Ms. Astrid Schomacher, the Director for Global Sustainable Development at the European Commission's Directorate General for the Environment. And she is going to talk to us about the circular economy and the green recovery. Ms. Schomacher.
Hi, Albertus. Thank you so much. I'm trying to start my video, and sorry to be late. In real life, I tend to be in a traffic jam. In the virtual life, you try to get into Zoom conference, and it sometimes takes some time. But just to say, I'm really happy to be with you as part of this Team Europe EU Climate Week, which of course looks at climate change, but more importantly also now draws attention to the just and green recovery and looks at that from all its angles. So at climate action, of course, but also at biodiversity, at biodiversity protection, at sustainable energy, and at circular economy and how they're all linked to each other. And what I would like to do in the next 10 minutes or so, give you a bit our perspective and how the circular economy fits into these ideas of the green recovery we hear so much about, and why building back better really means building to the benefit of future generations and in a way that we respect planetary boundaries. And to elaborate a little bit on that, I think we have all seen with the COVID-19 pandemic, it has brought devastation throughout the world and certainly to many, many economies. And South Africa, sadly, is no exception. You are struggling. And it's really brought our ways of life to a halt. And in order to respond to the crisis so far, we have obviously focused very much on the crisis. So we've looked at how can we save lives? How can we boost health infrastructure, get masks and protective equipment out, make sure we have food available for the poorest, protect our businesses. But now we also need to look beyond that, because if anything, we see the COVID-19 crisis as a wake-up call to sort of remind us what these big systemic crises can do. And they are the big ones looming out there: the climate change crisis, the biodiversity loss crisis, and also the excessive use of resources and pollution. And importantly, and that's almost my main point I want to make this morning, all of these things are linked. We need to look at them in a systemic perspective. We cannot fight climate change without addressing biodiversity. We cannot fight climate change without changing our economic system and moving to a circular economy. And in a way, we are at a breakthrough moment, if you want, because for whatever is happening now, we're also now seeing a moment where governments around the world will spend several trillions of dollars to recover from the crisis. And we need to remember in a way, and I want to say that again, that this is money that our current youth and even generations not yet born will have to be back in 2030, 40, 50. They will still be paying back the debts we now make in order to get out of this crisis. And that means we also have a moral responsibility to spend this money in such a way that the burden on our young generations, future generations is alleviated so that they can cope better with climate change, that they cannot just adapt, but that they can mitigate, that we halt biodiversity loss and resource use. And in all of that, if it sounds like an ideology, I really want to stress it is not an ideology. It's scientific evidence, economic logic. There is a lot of evidence that some of the root causes of the COVID crisis are linked to environmental degradation, but even more and even clearer evidence that our economic model has contributed crucially to climate change and to biodiversity loss. International Resource Panel, for example, says 50% of climate change impacts and up to 80% of biodiversity loss and stress is linked to the way we produce and consume. So we need to use this crisis, even though it's a cliche, but we need to use this crisis as an opportunity to rethink our production and consumption patterns. And that's exactly where the circular economy comes in. And to now turn to what we're doing in Europe, we adopted before the crisis in December 2019, something we call the European Green Deal. This is an overarching strategy for our economic growth, which has a number of objectives. First of all, to arrive at a zero net emissions society by 2050, to make sure that our economic growth is decoupled from resource use, and very, very importantly, to do all that in such a way that no person, no place, no region is left behind. Now, this is of course tricky, but again, these are all interlinked objectives. So a green transition that is fair and that creates jobs along the way is what we're after. And the Circular Economy Action Plan comes in right there. So we started with a circular economy transition roughly in 2015. We've gone quite a long way, and we've now put out a second action plan in March this year, which really wants to focus on reducing the EU consumption footprint and to double the rate of circular material use in the coming decade, while still boosting economic growth. So what we have seen in Europe, and there we're in a better situation than you in South Africa. We have had a lot of think tanks and research agencies come in and try to quantify the economic gains. So for example, before the crisis, we had figures telling us that we could, by going circular, create 700,000 new jobs. So all of this will have to be reviewed, but we have solid evidence that circular economy does lead to job creation due to the additional labor demand from recycling, for example, the repair services, but also the rebounds in consumer demand from the savings that can be made thanks to circularity. Now, what are we planning to do specifically in this action plan? We want to focus on 4 areas, and there are a lot of similarities with the thinking in South Africa, which is why talking about it makes it interesting and why we see a great perspective for cooperation. First of all, and that's our priority number 1, is making products more sustainable. So sustainable products should be the norm in the EU, putting product policy in a way at the center of circular economy. And by that, I mean, not just to focus on waste, but to focus on upstream, on product design, making sure products are designed to last longer, be easier to reuse, repair, recycle, incorporate increased content of recycled material. We're looking at restrictions of single-use materials. We've done that already for plastics. We're looking at premature obsolescence, how that can be tackled. We're looking at the destruction of unsold durable goods, whether that should be banned. So that's one thing. Durable, sustainable products on the EU market, working with companies at the design stage. Secondly, importantly, it's not just the business sector, we're all in it. So consumers, we need to empower consumers, meaning consumers actually need to know what they're doing. And to do that, they need to receive reliable information about repairability, durability of products, etc. So they need to be able to make environmentally sustainable choices. We will also propose minimum mandatory criteria for green procurement, because the government sector in the EU still, I think, up to 14% of all spending has a market pull and can set the tone there. Thirdly, we focus on resource-intensive industries, because that's where we can have the greatest impact, and those industries that also have a high potential for circularity: electronics, ICT, packaging, plastics, textiles, construction and building. Fourthly, we need to ensure less waste. We already have stringent waste legislation. We will now do even more, making sure that waste is transformed into high quality secondary raw materials that actually have a good market on which they can compete. So we need to look at the market conditions for secondary raw materials, and we will go further in mandating the separate collection of waste, for example. Now, all of this, and I really already am slowly coming to a close, means we need to do this also internationally, and we want to do it internationally. Our Circular Economy Action Plan has 4 dimensions internationally. We want to launch a global circular economy alliance. We're working towards a global agreement on plastics. There is the idea to work with other countries to explore the idea of a safe operating space for natural resources. Maybe in the discussion we can come back, but that actually means, and we think we actually need to kickstart already now the discussion of some sort of international agreement to ensure the sustainable management of natural resources. And we would like to work, of course, in particular with South Africa. For the green recovery to be meaningful, it means all our key partners need to pull together. We need to pull together with you. None of us can afford to lapse back into resource-intensive recovery. And of course, we are watching what your president is saying. And your president has spoken, or written rather, in his newsletter a few weeks ago about the importance of a climate-resilient recovery and green growth. So we see a lot of potential for us to work together with you bilaterally on food and plastic waste, for example, in the context of the Switch Africa program, through a contribution to the Green Outcome Fund led by the Green Cape, or through a recent study tour, which was led by Ms. Trudy Makaya, the President's economic advisor to Europe, to see how things work in practice. So now we think it's the right time to step this up further, to accelerate our dialogue, to see if in the new financial framework for our cooperation, we could have a dedicated cooperation program that would encourage circularity and stimulate green sectors. And then lastly, because my time is coming to an end, we also want to strengthen the cooperation at a continental level. And South Africa's leadership is clear, is recognized. And you also, very conveniently, I should say, currently chair the African Union. So we hope that together at the EU-AU summit, which will be held in the near future, South Africa will be co-chairing, we can work and build on what AMSEN, the African Ministerial Conference on the Environment, decided last year, and jointly work towards a green recovery. And of course, we also work together very much in the G20 Resource Efficiency Alliance, and we hope that South Africa will be joining the Global Circular Economy Alliance. So all this to say, we're in a crisis. Our economies are not in a good shape, to put it very mildly, but we want to use this moment of increased spending to really rethink the way we produce and consume, to step forward and move towards circularity. And we want to do it together with you. Thank you very much. And again, apologies for having been late.
Exciting stuff. Dankeschön, Frau Schomaker. If any of the people joining us have questions, you can start posting your questions. After the next couple of speakers, we will have a joint discussion and a chance for questions and answers. Now, our next speaker is all the way from a part of the world where in the middle of summer, the sun never sets. It literally stays light right throughout the night. Mr. Kari Herlevi of the Finnish Innovation Fund Sitra, who will tell us how to use the circular economy roadmap to build consensus and common vision to transit into a circular economy. Mr. Herlevi.
Greetings from Helsinki. Indeed, it's still sunny weather here. So I will tell you about the circular economy experiences from Finland from the Sitra's point of view. Shortly about Sitra. We are under the Finnish Parliament, very independent think tank for Finland. And we use only the returns of our endowment capital for our activities. And our fund size is around 800 million euros currently. And circular economy is and has been one of the biggest areas of our operations. If I have a look briefly what we have done so far in Finland, so we created internationally first national roadmap back in 2016, and it has been the inspirational roadmap for Finland to take steps in the last years towards circular economy. We also founded, together with our partners, the World Circular Economy Forum, where we are hosting this month online version, and there's almost 4,000 registrants already, so you're welcome to join that as well. In fact, there is a session about Africa and recovery, and it's hosted by African Development Bank and African Circular Economy Alliance. So it's certainly a very, very good seminar as well. From Sitra side, after the roadmap, we have been focusing in just transition type of issues and digital solutions and empowering businesses, and especially nowadays also look at the more global aspects, including trade. And in fact, we are also increasing our collaboration in Africa context, and we are starting with our Foreign Office joint program with African Development Bank as well in coming years. So it's very exciting for us as well to be part of this seminar and talk to the South Africa context. When it comes to the Finnish experience, I would like to highlight, we started from the material discussions and the kind of business-driven approach, which is really important, and it gives kind of the jobs perspective and the economy perspective. But we need to look also the social aspects of circular economy, and that's why we have shifted more to analyze also the effects behind, for example, job growth and these kind of transitions behind of the society. So it's really important to look at that as well. So I have also listed here why to make a national roadmap. And indeed, in Europe, I think around 15 countries have their own roadmaps nowadays. And one of the key things is that you need to have leadership and vision in the country level as well. Where you want to take your country and be smart with the natural resources. Of course, as said, it creates opportunities for the country as well. And obviously, this is something that Finland has seen, and hopefully we can gain from those experiences in the future as well. The roadmap itself, it's really about creating mindset and collaboration in the country. And that this is really, as Astrid Schumacher pointed out, systemic and need to have everybody on board. In a small country, of course, it's easier to do. But anyway, it shows also the kind of ways forward, how to actually do it in a concrete way. And I will tell you some of the examples that we have done in Finland. But as said, it's really about collaboration and really as a kind of team play type of effort. As this is a climate week, it's of course good to point out that we are not there in Finland either. There's a long way to kind of mitigate the kind of climate effect that we have and CO2 kind of footprint in Finland as well. And I would also point out, like Astrid does as well, that the biodiversity is also important. So we need to kind of look this from the very holistic point of view, also from the Finnish point of view. What is good thing is that the Finns are for circular economy. We did a study and majority thinks that this is the right path forward. So I think it's of course good to have that kind of broad shoulders from the kind of citizens' point of view. And we also know that the Finns are very interested in environmental topics, but of course there is still kind of a way to go to transform that to actions as well. So in that sense, even though we have taken the right steps, of course we need to look really seriously about the waste kind of production, but also from the business point of view, many companies are still innovating in a linear model, and we need to see more and more kind of very holistic sharing models and new business models that are really changing the tide here. And also, even though the ministries are now working very well together and the government is making new circular plan, of course, we need to make sure that this is aligned in the whole ministry level as well. But having said that, I think that one of the key things that we have done so far in Finland in a systemic level is the transformation of the education sector to a circular economy. And this is done with, of course, with ministries and the education sector themselves with us. And there is more than 70,000 students that are learning about circular economy already in school since 2018. And this is not like having a separate siloed topic of circular economy. It's really about integrating circular economy in existing curriculum and studies. So it's really important that everybody understands this opportunity. When it comes to circular economy roadmap work, I mentioned the government is making the kind of next phases plan currently. These are the kind of main players in the country perspective. There's obviously the leadership in state level, there's the city level, there's the companies and citizens. So in that sense, in order to make this happen, we need to have interaction within these target groups, but also between of these. And I already touched base the governmental level, which is really important to make the kind of vision, but also regulation point of view. But the towns are very important. They create the kind of possibility for industries to pilot different circular economy innovations in the public procurement processes, for example, is really important to have circular economy integrated. Company level in Finland, I think Finns are quite good in understanding the opportunity, and as there is a customer-driven approach, customers are looking forward more and more about these solutions, and the industry sees this also as a possibility to be smarter with natural resources. So this all leads to a direction that companies, especially bigger ones, are very much on top of these trends. When it comes to the citizen level, I already mentioned that many people are on board of this, but of course there's a long way still to go to have that like in action level in the everyday life, and that's something that we need to keep pushing forward as well. many countries and organizations have asked us kind of advice how to get started. I think that is maybe one of the most trickiest part, not like the making the roadmap, but really getting started and actually then to implement it. So we are actually publishing in our World Circular Economy online a guidebook how to make a roadmap, and hopefully this is also kind of a cornerstone for our collaboration in the African Development Bank. We are not expecting to give advice to everybody about all the aspects, but in a really humble way to maybe show some of the learnings and lessons learned from the Finnish point of view. So hopefully that will be of interest to you as well. So to conclude, so we need to really have a well-managed transition, which is fair towards circular economy, where everybody is on board, and that's what we are trying to do here in Finland. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present the Finnish case.
Kiitos paljon, herra Herlevi. Next on the list from the Basque country, we have Mr. Ander Elgorriaga. He is the Eco-Innovation Programs Head of IHOBE, and he will explain to us how in the Basque country they have implemented the circular economy in industry through public-private collaboration. Mr. Elgorriaga.
Yes. Hello, you listen to me?
Yes, you can go ahead.
You see the slides?
Yes, they are perfect. Thank you.
Okay. One moment. I put it bigger here. So, moment. I don't see them just. So, okay. Okay. So, 1 second. Okay. Okay. So, I have to put this away. So 1 second. Okay, I present myself. I'm Ander Elgorriaga of IHOBE, the Environmental Agency of the Basque Government. Today I wanted to share with you our learnings about supporting resource efficiency and circular economy in industry during 25 years. I hope to deliver you some ideas. So, first of all, let's see where I come from. The Basque Country is a small region in Spain with 2 million inhabitants. This means we know each other, more or less. We have, by the way, Europe's highest density of Michelin-star restaurants. We presume of a high per capita income and excellent position in the Human Development Index, and our industrial activity accounts for 24% of the GDP. Metal transformation, automotive supplies, renewables, electric equipment, and machinery are the key sectors. To connect back to my previous slide, I like to tell you that we are a unique agency because we combine an intensive activity in economic policy instruments, design and implementation with knowledge development and its transfer to our industry. Also relevant is a continuous estimation and measurement of the impact of our activity. You and me, we all have to work cost effectively and to adapt ourselves continuously to new challenges. In the next slides, I want to show you 3 results we got, to tell you how we got them, and finally to share with you our learnings. I want to emphasize that all 3 results we have got a direct consequence of the strategic analysis we did about the last 2010 crisis. Now we are harvesting the fruits, but we cannot relax. We will face again a new uncertain post-COVID-19 era. It's time to rethink our way to do. Just a minute. Oops. Yes, just a minute. I want to tell you, we try not to talk about waste. We talk about value. Value for the customer in the long term. This means anticipation by life cycle thinking. This, on one hand, we promote a product focus. As you probably know, 80% of the environmental impacts are determined in the design phase. So eco-design, product value retention, and product service systems are, in our opinion, the key issues. On the other hand, we focus on materials. Many people are surprised when we show them that in Europe, materials account for over 50% of production costs. Because of this, eco-efficient production and closing material loops are the most relevant issues. So, this slide presents our first result. We have analyzed the green turnover development of 30 leading bus companies collaborating with IOBE. By 2020, we expect that eco-designed products account for more than 7,000 euros per year. This means a sales increase from 28 to 46% in only 5 years. Why? I'll show you. It was just in hard crisis time. It was impossible to guide any SME to life cycle thinking. So we decided to call several bus multinationals that should be greener to make more profit. For instance, Iberdrola, EDP, Energy Services, Siemens Gamesa, windmill manufacturers, Eroski retailer, or CE Automotive Tier 1. We did projects, built up the skills and evaluate green business opportunities, and began slowly to green the supply chain, because eco-design products need green suppliers, the best driver for SMEs. This slide aims to show you results related to skilled graduates that transfer green knowledge to companies. Only in 3 years, close to 150 eco-design and circular economy projects have been carried out in industry by graduates. Business were so satisfied that 60% of graduates were recruited to continue eco-designing products. The reason to succeed was that we joined academic knowledge with industry. Graduates and business get profit with the Basque Circular Hub all universities are collaborating with. This was also a decision taken after last 2010 crisis. It's time to present the third result. We expect to reduce 0.35 million tons a year of greenhouse gases emission and increase yearly 85 million euros of green turnover. Highly positive figures, even more if I enlarge this with other results as 230 new jobs or half a million of tons material saved yearly. The way to achieve these results hasn't been easy. Our Circular Economy Innovation Program supports every year about 35 new eco-innovation projects with limited budgets. More than 100 projects have been supported with 5 million euros. We try money not to be the real program value. Strategic assessment, networking support, demand creation, business model support, or administrative procedures acceleration are many times even more relevant for success than the initial hook, the money. And we got also a good cost effectiveness of public budgets. Each public euro induces 21 private euro yearly turnover. Now I want to make a short break to explain you one of our innovative circular economy projects, just finished last month. You have probably observed that many car repair shops, at least in Europe, are only replacing components. Innovative repair operations that are cheaper for the customer and makes more money to the repair shops are crucial to survive. In the car component project, we have demonstrated through the feasibility of 5 of these technologies. Professional education centers begin this year to train young people and employees. This project is part of our product value retention roadmap. But also in South Africa, you have some good experiences. Have a look to them. Last but not least, I want to give back our learnings based on our 25 years work with companies to accelerate the implementation of resource efficiency and circular economy. Our last policy goals are to grow material productivity, higher green product sales, increase green employment, and reduce embedded greenhouse gases emissions. Our learning can be summarized in 6 points. First point, to be cost effective, we have always benchmarked best instruments and experiences worldwide. So we have selected, adapted to our reality, piloted, and many times implemented new circular economy initiatives. We have saved a lot of time and money only by networking and benchmarking. Second learning point, to make circular economy happen, companies have to understand not only the concepts, but also the real business drivers, knowing future drivers as multinational companies' requirements, as front-runner competitors, as new legislations, create CEOs, circular demand, and are highly relevant to succeed in business. Third point, when company demand exists, innovation is needed. Innovation has to be supported intensively. You will get front runners, you need them. Fourth point, circular economy is about money. Real economy is on green products and sustainable materials and also efficient manufacturing, not on waste. Fifth point, we want to point out that life cycle thinking goes further than only environment. It's about anticipating in early stages customer problems and needs, making a difference in the market. And the last point is, one second. And the last point is that, after COVID-19 crisis, we are even more aware about employment. There are some circular opportunities. Product value retention is one of them. Think about remanufacturing, advanced repair local, and so on. To finish my presentation, I hope I have contributed a little bit to the debate of circular economy in South Africa. Although differences between countries are huge. If you have any need or question, we will try to support you. Thank you for this invitation. Eskerrik asko in our 5,000 years old language. Okay, I hope you have enjoyed.
Eskerrik asko, Mr. Elgorriaga. To our audience members, please use the Ask a Question button if you have any questions to the panelists. And now for our last speaker of the first session, Mr. Chris White. He is the South African country leader for the African Circular Economy Network. And he will chat to us, he will give us some great examples of using waste as a resource when transitioning to a circular economy. Mr. White.
Good morning. I'm Chris White. Thank you for listening to me today. Today at the EU Climate Diplomacy Week, I'd like to take a little bit of time to discuss with you the opportunities in terms of developing a resource-efficient economy in South Africa. I'm an executive member and also the chapter lead for South Africa for the African Circular Economy Network, ACEN. And today I'm going to be chatting to you about how we look at transitioning to a circular economy where waste is a resource. A number of projects I want to go through just to look at the physical and realistic applications in terms of circular economy applications. One that I've been working on for a long time. We won the South African Institute of Architects Sustainable Architecture Innovation Award, as well as the International Energy Globe Award for South Africa in 2019. Literally taking waste soils and waste soils and builders' rubble from the landfill sites and using compression methodology to manufacture a low carbon, highly thermally efficient building medium. The RAM brick, as we called it, we used to build anything from RDP type housing up to churches and even a massive recycling center that we built up in Hammersdale. And literally taking the available materials around us. Landfill sites across South Africa probably range between 25 and 40% of the waste stream going in there comes from soil waste and builders' rubble, and these are valuable materials and resources for new project development. The issue we need to get through is looking at certification and compliance and getting these materials into mainstream. We also work in upcycling. Tire tubes is one example. We could look at wood waste. We could look at PVC, vinyls, etc. The application you see here is looking at tire tubes, which has no current market value. And we look at skills development and valorization of the waste in the waste stream and developing different applications where we can convert these into high-grade products for the marketplace. In terms of project development, collection is very important. We've got to develop applications and markets for the collected material, but we also need to ensure that the collection mechanisms are in place, whether it's through cleanups or source separation projects or community developments. Electronic waste is another massive project opportunity, largely in South Africa and across Africa. We're looking mostly at refurbishment and recycling. Refurbishment is critical in Africa in terms of the opportunity to bridge the digital divide. But the recycling is pretty much elementary at this stage. We're separating out the high-grade metals. We export the printed circuit boards. So we need to look at local applications like we've done here with the complicated e-waste plastics with Javco, where we've developed building applications such as guttering elbows and guttering profiles that can go into mainstream application. There's also opportunities in terms of the separation of the different metals to a higher grade that would increase the value locally. And there's huge opportunities in terms of the e-waste sector that we need to develop. With regards to tires, not much has happened in this country other than a few pyrolysis systems that have not been very successful. They create a low-grade oil that has a limited market availability, but there are opportunities in terms of refining that oil into other products. There's crumbing facilities that have been quite successful in the country, the likes of Envirobuild, Van Dyke, some of the projects that have happened there. But also the crumb can go into alternative flooring systems and interlocking matting. The project you see on your left there is what we call a tire cycler. Again, we got the Global Cleantech Innovation Program Award for this. And again, $500 unit that will create 2 jobs, allowing individuals to extract the bead out of the tires as clean metals. In terms of project development, connection is vitally important. So waste portals, apps, and information resources are essential. We have currently in South Africa a number of very mature systems. We have the Recycle Connect application, the MyWaste portal, as well as applications which link the products to spaza shops like ShopIt. We have the PROs, producer responsibility organizations, for example, Petco, Polyco, the Glass Recycling Company. We have more umbrella organizations like the National Recycling Forum. More importantly, we have really evolved into the 4th Industrial Revolution, looking at development of full blockchain-based smart apps that provide full traceability and cashless transactions, which would help to underpin the recycling economy through the likes of the Saudi solutions. Manufacturing is happening in a number of different areas. The traditional manufacturing, for example, plastics, plastic lumber, but also primary processing facilities, wash plants, crushing, granulating, shredding, pelletizing, etc. But there's also opportunities, for example, small-scale pyrolysis, where, again, locally produced technology allows us to convert problematic plastics into high-grade fuels at a small scale that are highly economically viable. And those plastics that are even more problematic are mixed in with glass to create waste plastic concrete replacement products that literally anything that can be molded out of concrete can be molded out of plastic and glass aggregates. In project development, we need to look also at the bigger systems. In South Africa, we probably landfill between 70 and 80 million tons a year of fly ash, tailings, and slag. And there's an opportunity there to convert this into geopolymers. Again, local South African technology, tried and tested. These can become foamed or solid products that use about 90% of reused or recycled material and create about 90% lower carbon dioxide emissions. These are, again, tried and tested, different applications in terms of rapid building methods, different screeding systems, countertop surfaces, etc. All can be manufactured from 100% waste. And this is not research, this is real application. Here are some of the applications in terms of the geopolymers through a company, Arc Innovations. The parts of the Gautrain were built with the concrete replacement product. The foundations at the wind farms in the Western Cape, again giving us a 91.5% reduction in carbon emissions. And again, showing at scale, for example, the portside building development in Cape Town, where a huge portion of geopolymers helped to reduce the carbon footprint of the building by about 59%. So there's a number of different ways that we can apply these applications in the market. But we need to be able to look at solving the plastic waste issues with proven and affordable technologies. The issue really comes down to the problematic dirty plastics, and we can convert that into fuels or building products. This is a global problem. The picture in the top left is the Citron River in Southeast Asia, and we have a similar issue right across virtually any informal settlement in Africa. And yet we can take a multitude of these different products and convert them either into building products, bricks, blocks, pavers, retaining walls, curbstones, drainage U-channels, anything that can be manufactured out of concrete. Or we can convert them into different levels of fuel, from light sulfur furnace oils to diesel derivative replacements. And there's massive market opportunities across Africa where energy is a massive issue. In Africa, we have 650 million people without access to electricity. So there's a huge opportunity from there. And glass is another undervalued product. We landfill thousands of tons of glass each day. And yet there are a multitude of applications, from fillers, coatings, plaster sand, water filtration, sandblasting grit, insulation wool, counters preparation, prepared surfaces can be manufactured using resins. So again, massive applications and opportunities that will create jobs and unlock economies locally. And we really need to look at this evolution from a linear economy through to a circular economy. And we need to go from the take, make, dispose type application into creating those chains, which we are as a country at the moment. I think we are starting to create those chains and those links. But we need to look at the interdependencies and the opportunities that actually convert this into a truly circular economy. And in doing this, we're literally looking at a geometry issue. At the moment, in Africa, we have, whether it's corporate or the private public sector, we live in boxes and silos, and we need to look at unpacking the opportunities that will allow us to create full circularity and ensure that we don't just look at waste as an issue that requires management, but rather as a resource that applies itself to achieving the goals of the Sustainable Development Goals, from clean water to decent jobs, zero poverty, sustainable energy, infrastructure, etc. And these are all applications that we need to look forward to in terms of transitioning to a circular economy where waste is a resource. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to the remainder of the discussions.
Lekker, Mr. White. Thank you very much. It is question time. So if you have any question to ask, please use the Ask a Question button. I'm sure you are thoroughly stimulated and burning to ask questions. And remember, no question is a stupid question. We have 10 minutes for this question and answer time, so let's keep it concise. And while you are typing away, we have a question from Max. And maybe we can direct this one to Mrs. Schumacher. The question is, as advanced economies are cleaning up, the dirty industrialized deals and development are shunting into Africa. Example, the fast tracking of the East Africa oil pipeline with Total announced this weekend. Is there an effective mechanism to incentivize or punish European companies who are keeping their profit lines buoyant this way? If you can just unmute yourself, Mr. Schumacher.
That might help. These days one talks a lot to oneself. But I was actually saying it's a difficult question. And in particular, it's not a monodimensional. It will sound as if I waffle, but I want to sort of say that there are several elements to the answer. So firstly, luckily the word incentivize was in the question, because that's doable and is being done. So the key word here is transparency. So in the EU, for example, we're having a lot of new legislation about disclosing where your raw materials come from, as an example. So that's the first thing. So people know, consumer awareness, we mentioned it for the circular economy. Classic example in Europe, palm oil. People see the word palm oil on the box of cookies and say, I don't want this. rightly or wrongly. But so this is a powerful driver. Likewise, there is a lot of awareness in the industry now. And for example, we are discussing the upgrading of the corporate social responsibility guidelines, responsible business conduct stuff, so all of this. So that's one element. The punishing element is a lot more difficult. In particular, of course, if what a company does is in line with the laws of the recipient countries. So if a country allows investment in dirty industries, then it would be somewhat difficult for us to say, well, you cannot do that in Africa because we don't like you doing it there. However, there are areas where we do say that already. Classic example again, waste exports. So there are laws prohibiting the export of hazardous waste, and they're being enforced. Not 100%, they need to be enforced better. They need to be enforced, incidentally, in cooperation again with the recipient countries, because there's one thing we can do monitoring at the harbors, at the port when the stuff goes out, but we also need to make sure we have good cooperation at the other end, that when suspicious stuff arrives, that we can help there. Also, another example, typical industrialized countries love to get rid of their derelict ships, send them somewhere to India, Pakistan, etc. for dismantling and so on. We're done with it. And that's also something we have legislated on and said this is going to stop. And we have come in that case up with a different solution saying we're going to look, we could do a sort of inspection of facilities. And if we find this facilities respect environmental and social standards to a level that is acceptable in Europe, then we would allow ships still to be dismantled there. Third element of the answer is, I think that sounds a bit like we don't want to be responsible, but it's important. It's capacity building in the recipient country. So a question of having a dialogue, what should the local legislation be? What kind of investment is good for the country? That's the global discussion on the circular economy. If we have that kind of discussion on how we want to build back better, maybe a fossil fuel investment is not the first investment that enters somebody's mind. And the fourth thing, and here I come really again to the circular economy as such in Europe, of course, the more we are moving into renewables and the more we're moving into circularity, for example, recycling plastics, the more we will actually need fossil fuels, and the less attractive this kind of activity becomes. So with these four elements together, yes, we can take action, but it's not a straightforward punishing kind of thing.
Thank you very much. Our next question is from Ariane, and she says, so many sectors have an opportunity to go circular: construction, textile, manufacturing. Where to start? Maybe we can ask Mr. Herlevy, who has worked on a roadmap to a circular economy, and Mr. Mokoena, maybe you as well have some thoughts on this question.
Thank you for the opportunity. So from our perspective, I think the best is to start first in a national context to analyze where are the kind of biggest opportunities from the business point of view. That's actually what we did. So we had an extensive study to analyze the best areas to continue the work. And of course, manufacturing is one of the most evident in many countries, as it was also in Finland. We have a very strong export businesses in that sense, in technologies, etc. So that was our kind of most evident case. In the African context, of course, I'm not an expert in sense, but like the showcases example shown already today shows that, of course, you have to make sure that the waste sector is also taken care of so that you actually can increase the value of recycling, etc. So that's an evident. But I would also look at the manufacturing in the African context as well as a kind of opportunity, besides also the kind of agriculture sector. And I would go also to the level of tourism, because in many cases, tourism, also in Finland, when we receive tourists, they look very carefully how things are done. And in that context, I think there's a strong interest also to go circular.
Thank you, Mr. Mokoena.
Thank you very much, Albertus, for the question. Maybe it's safe to indicate that what is always better is to start where you can make the most impact. So hence the state of waste in a particular country will assist. For instance, South Africa, we have what we call State of Waste Report. It gives us an indication of the quantities and the amount of waste that is out there. So looking at that, you are able to say maybe in C&D waste, there is an opportunity because bulk of the material that goes into landfill site has element of C&D waste, about 20%. So if you look at organic waste, again, also at 20%, you easily have a 40% bulk material that you can prioritize intervention on circular economy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have a question to Chris, Chris White. The person says, thanks to the speakers for the interesting insights and examples from the EU and South Africa. How about examples of South African EU collaboration in this space?
I think we need to look at it quite holistically. The reality is that we're seeing a lot of engagement now between EU and SA. We're seeing that some of the technologies and applications we're developing in this country actually have solutions and opportunities in Europe. The application, like we're doing through the African Circular Economy Network at the moment, is working with the European Union to look at how Africa transitions to a circular economy and how we unpack that to create the relationships between EU countries and African countries. Post-COVID has really shown us that we need to change the way that we're doing things. The supply chain systems are broken down. We cannot do the total thing and export our dirty applications to Africa. We need to look at making sure that there are opportunities for creating circularity right throughout the value chain that allows us to create stronger links between the European states and African states.
Fantastic. We have two questions from learners or students. The first one is to Mrs. Schumacher. The person asks, with the mention to have circular economy to be done internationally, how do we then assess the capabilities of countries to engage in such, and which standard will be used to measure this? Did you get that, Mrs. Schumacher? If you can just unmute yourself again.
Sorry about that. I was saying I love this question because this is super difficult because there's a lot we can do in this sort of North-South debate, where we can do a lot in this sort of conceptualization, the way also the colleagues from Finland have done it. I've tried to do it, say what are the main ingredients of a circular economy, how do you need a vision, an action plan, stakeholder involvement, finance, all of that. This is one thing, and there we can have useful dialogue. But where we need to come together as an international community is precisely in the definition of such standards. This is why we're looking, for example, for plastics at the idea of a global plastics agreement, where we would sort of say, what kind of plastics do we want? How do we measure that? What are the standards? And they could be an international agreement, for example, so that everybody agrees on them, and then they tend to be financial other mechanisms for capacity building. So that is important. But before we get there, we also want to have this global circular economy alliance idea, which builds on what we do in the EU, and basically say, let's bring all stakeholders and countries together to just exchange information and share what's being done. If I take the example of the plastic tiles that was in Chris's presentation, I've seen them in Ghana, I've seen them in South Africa. So that's a fantastic thing to do, but many other countries have never heard about them. So that's the kind of forum and platform we want to create. Thanks.
Beautiful, thank you. And then we have a question also from one of the learners or students to Kari. And the person wrote with the, let me just get back to that, with the suggestion to create a guidebook for the commencement of circular economy. Will the guide be European focused only? I'm not sure how this will apply in the African context if capacity and resources are not the same. I also just want to mention while you're thinking about this, Kari, that we will go over the time a little bit because we have lots of questions and we're going to stretch this discussion a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a very good question. Of course, the experiences are from Finland, and in that sense, you could say it's at least a European context to a certain extent, but we have tried to make it the kind of more general with the idea that it's focusing more on the processes than the actual finished work that we did. Of course, we will give examples from our context, but we're really focusing on the kind of how to get started, what is the situational picture, how to get people mobilized. Of course, you could say that, of course, they are in a European context as well, but we hope that it could at least start, especially when we are collaborating with African Development Bank. It could at least give some ideas for that project, and hopefully you can take it forward from there.
Great, thank you so much. A question to Mr. Elgorriaga. You have given us some very impressive statistics that from 2016 to 2020, you went from 28% eco-design products to 46%.
Yeah.
How do you get companies to change their paradigm from this consumerist mindset with strategies like built-in obsolescence to the opposite, to life cycle thinking?
Yes, companies look at money. So we have the hardest thing for us is to put our best people to convince high CEOs and directors to really understand that if they invest in these issues, they will get a bigger return, economic return. As example, Iberdrola, one of the strongest companies on renewables worldwide, has understood with us together that they will have more profit doing this in the long term. So really now extremely strong working on it because they have understood it really at top level. So it was a hard technical and diplomacy work with them to convince them. Longer 5 years, 6 years working every week very hard with them. So, but it's a good value because then they make all the supply chain to be greener. And this is extremely cheap also for the government, because if you work with multinationals that really commit to this, you will be very fast in greening the supply chain. And it's one of the good ways, but it's a very hard way. It's very long and hard way, but it makes profit at the end.
Great. Mr. Mokoena, in the South African context, implementation of the circular economy process possess an opportunity for creating new green employment and to also insulate existing employment in the country. However, we do face challenges with a large amount of plastics produced by the informal sector that is not in regulation to the standardized measures. Hence, noting how difficult it is to regulate plastic use, especially in the informal sector, how is the department ensuring efficient cooperation between itself, the informal sector, to gauge the quantity and quality of plastics used and to reduce production of those plastics not compliant with standard regulations? That was a mouthful. Did you get all of that?
Yes, thanks a lot for that question. It is a very important point. It's safe to say that the manner in which we approach it, we have the plastic bag regulations that previously were assisting us with dealing with the issue of illegal dumping of plastics everywhere, where at that time it was seen to be and referred to as flowers because it was all over on the fence, on the trees, etc. So through the regulations, we started introducing a levy and value for a plastic material so that a person will think twice before throwing it away. Instead of getting for free, you will have to pay it at the retail or a store for you to get a carry bag. So that levy is being adjusted on a regular basis in order to continue making it serving as a deterrent, largely from throwing it away initially, but encouraging it, the reuse and keeping it possible in the value chain. So hence, for instance, there is indication that some carrier bags can be reused for more than 40, 50 times. So depending on how often you reuse that. Another important point is to say we're relooking at those regulations to introduce the need for recycled content in the manufacturing of the plastic bag, which is now upstream at manufacturing. This is where the element of design for recyclability comes in, and we're looking at the changes in the percentage of that over a period of time, which is more upstream and a policy intervention that will eventually have the effects downstream. That's a short one. We also have import and export regulations that then controls the cross-boundary movement. I think a point related to the earlier discussion on whether countries have policies to regulate the material that is coming into the country. Thank you very much.
Awesome, thank you so much. This was a very interesting discussion, and I think it stimulated all of us to think more and discuss more. We are going to have a break now. It's 11:15 South African time. So in 10 minutes time, we will be back, 11:25. We will start sharply at 11:25. Then there will be 7 really short 5-minute presentations. And after each one of these presentations, there will be opportunities for questions and discussion. Please also check out the poll and participate. See you at 11:25. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Good day. My name is Eric Leongson, and I'm the Group Head of Sustainability at Distell. Distell is one of the largest producers of wine, ciders, and spirits in Africa. Today, I'll be talking about our circular economy journey. Often people see circular economy as an aside activity, but at Distell, we believe that circular economy needs to be integrated into your business strategy, as in doing good is good for business. To ensure that such efforts are grounded in a coherent development framework and aligned to clearly identify needs, we draw onto the SDGs, also known as the Global Goals. We believe that circular economy programs, if done right, we can drive business growth, we can contain cost, look at job creation, addressing risks in our value chain, and more importantly, focus purpose into our organization. Let's be kinder on nature. We need to tackle this problem at source. We need to work together to get to a point where we can circulate almost everything we use. Keep it out of our landfills and out of our oceans. We are a proud member of the Consumer Goods Council, a founding member of the SA Plastic Pact, and part of other industry forums. And we have our own initiative on circular economy called GreenUp. Through these partnerships, We work together with industry bodies, government, local municipalities, and civil society, and our own peers. We can accelerate the transition to a circular economy in South Africa. Let's work together on this journey. Thank you.
Our priority is to clean up the continent of Africa, and we strongly believe that our business can change the tide of electronic waste.
Electronic waste is the fastest growing waste stream in the world. In Africa, I believe the total is somewhere around 2 million tons a year, of which only 4% roughly is being recycled.
Most outdated computers and electronic equipment reaching end of life ends up in landfills, where it not only contributes to the untenable waste crisis, but heavy metals from the components leach into the earth and pollute the water table. And as a growing desire for electronics continues to balloon, so does the need for correct end-of-life disposal. AST Recycling is a leader in the management of electronic waste, offering clients a full turnkey solution with IT asset management and IT asset disposal. AST's e-waste management includes consultation, needs analysis, collection of e-waste, sorting, assessment for refurbishment, data sanitization and dismantling, then diverting e-waste from landfill through a recycling program.
The first part of the process would be an assessment of what their requirements are and a due diligence to see whether it's just pure e-waste that needs to be dismantled and recycled, or if there's viable equipment to actually contribute to the circular economy. Some clients require that we do data erasure and sanitization on site. Software erasure is a far better method of doing it because it renders the hard drive safe for reuse, and all data is sanitized beyond forensic recovery. That makes it easier in terms of refurbishing the computer because now its hard drive is intact. You reload the operating system, stress testing all the components to make sure that it's viable for resale. If we need spare parts, we just strip them off some of the other devices that may be broken. So we harvest parts and it just contributes to the circular economy in that it's being reused all the time.
The European Union and South Africa are heavily impacted by the COVID-19 crisis. While immediate health concerns prevail, economic recovery packages are being prepared at national, regional, and global level. On the EU side, while all the immediate political focus is on the task of combating the coronavirus, the European Union is continuing its preparatory work on long-term policy priorities, including the European Green Deal. On the South African side, the government remains committed over the short to medium term to implementing structural economic reforms to address multiple socio-economic challenges that have been amplified by the COVID-19 pandemic.
My name is Rina Kionka and I'm the EU ambassador to South Africa. The EU is in a difficult position and we recognize that our partners around the world are also in a difficult position, and so we've banded together to try to help. The EU alone has rechanneled over R500 million rands to the most immediate problems that we see in the health sector, education, GBV. In the EU, we recognize that small and medium-sized enterprises are the backbone of the economy, and this is where the jobs come from. So as soon as the pandemic hit, we got in contact with Green Cape and the National Treasury and other green SMEs and their financial backers to learn more, to learn from what South Africa is doing, how we can support the efforts to recover in a green way.
My name is Nazim Hendricks. I'm from the Jobs Fund, a unit of National Treasury. Our aim is to co-fund and test innovative job creation models. In 2008, with the global financial crisis, there was a realization that things has to be done differently. The green economy has to play a central part in the development of the way we operate going forward. The Green Outcomes Fund Partnership is a collaboration between the Jobs Fund and Green Cape. The goal there is really to invest about 495 million into small, early stage, small and micro medium enterprises who operate within the green economy. And we feel that the collaboration between the Green Outcomes Fund, Green Cape, as well as the Jobs Fund will provide the market with an incentive to actually invest within the green economy and thereby promote further investments further down the line. We've got to take account of our carbon footprint, of our natural resources, and so forth. And hence development of green economic models becomes crucial within the context of developing long-term sustainable economic growth.
My name is Luther Muller. I'm part of the management team of WasteOne. In our business, as a waste management business, we specialize in developing integrated waste management plans for corporate facilities and for municipalities alike. During the COVID-19 lockdown period, we had to restructure how drivers were operating. We operate on a huge workforce within our facility, so having to put certain people on short time and having a rotation in terms of the amount of people on the facility at that particular time created havoc in terms of operational excellence. How much can we get done work-wise from a work-labor perspective? There's only 100 people permitted on the facility, which we have way more. So, I mean, that was a challenge in itself.
My name is Fabio Venturi. I'm the founder and CEO of Teramanzi Group. Teramanzi Group is an environmental consulting firm, and we help our clients
Great, welcome back. I hope you had a chance to refresh a little bit and ready for our second part. Let me just get to my spot here. Okay, cool. So in this session, we will look at innovative circular economy examples, both in the EU and in South Africa. And first on the list, we have Mr. Mike Malke he is the CEO of Green Cape, and he's going to show us a video on some of the small, medium and micro enterprises they work with in a circular economy industrial symbiosis program to create jobs and to cut costs. After the video, we will have a quick opportunity for a question or two. You can use the Ask a Question button to post your question. Thank you very much.
The European Union and South Africa are heavily impacted by the COVID-19 crisis. While immediate health concerns prevail, economic recovery packages are being prepared at national, regional, and global level. On the EU side, while all the immediate political focus is on the task of combating the coronavirus, the European Union is continuing its preparatory work on long-term policy priorities, including the European Green Deal. On the South African side, the government remains committed over the short to medium term to implementing structural economic reforms to address multiple socio-economic challenges that have been amplified by the COVID-19 pandemic.
My name is Rina Kionka, and I'm the EU ambassador to South Africa. The EU is in a difficult position, and we recognize that our partners around the world are also in a difficult position, and so we've banded together to try to help. The EU alone has rechanneled over R500 million rands to the most immediate problems that we see in the health sector, education, GBV. In the EU, we recognize that small and medium-sized enterprises are the backbone of the economy, and this is where the jobs come from. So as soon as the pandemic hit, we got in contact with Green Cape and the National Treasury and other green SMEs and their financial backers to learn more, to learn from what South Africa is doing, how we can support the efforts to recover in a green way.
My name is Nazim Hendricks. I'm from the Jobs Fund, a unit of National Treasury. Our aim is to co-fund and test innovative job creation models. In 2008, with the global financial crisis, there was a realization that things has to be done differently. The green economy has to play a central part in the development of the way we operate going forward. The Green Outcomes Fund Partnership is a collaboration between the Jobs Fund and Green Cape. The goal there is really to invest about 495 million into small, early stage, small and micro medium enterprises who operate within the green economy. And we feel that the collaboration between the Green Outcomes Fund, Green Cape, as well as the Jobs Fund will provide the market with an incentive to actually invest within the green economy and thereby promote further investments further down the line. We've got to take account of our carbon footprint, of our natural resources, and so forth. And hence development of green economic models becomes crucial within the context of developing long-term sustainable economic growth.
My name is Luther Muller. I'm part of the management team of Waste One. In our business, as a waste management business, we specialize in developing integrated waste management plans for corporate facilities and for municipalities alike. During the COVID-19 lockdown period, we had to restructure how drivers were operating. We operate on a huge workforce within our facility, so having to put certain people on short time and having a rotation in terms of the amount of people on the facility at that particular time created havoc in terms of operational excellence. How much can we get done work-wise from a work-labor perspective? There's only 100 people per meter on the facility, which we have way more. So, I mean, that was a challenge in itself.
My name is Fabio Venturi. I'm the founder and CEO of Teramanzi Group. Teramanzi Group is an environmental consulting firm, and we help our clients gain access and participate in the green economy. Many of our projects are focused in the renewable energy field, wind, solar farms. COVID effectively shut those down. One of the major challenges was having a number of our active projects and pending projects pause indefinitely, which created severe cash flow concerns.
My name is Akshay Jagannath. I'm an operations manager for Sustainable Heating. Sustainable Heating is a heating solution company that produces heat by using waste wood. During the COVID-19 pandemic, our main challenges were our suppliers were closed, so we couldn't get wood. On our equipment side, they couldn't supply us materials where we needed to fix and repair and maintain our plants.
My name is Francisco Stemmet. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Sensor Networks. We have hardware that gets installed into your home alongside your geyser, and it has a couple of sensors and it monitors the health of the geyser. Our biggest issue that we had was that obviously with the direct lockdown we couldn't do any installations. COVID's proven to us that time waits for nobody, and businesses have seen the impact of COVID. What this has done is it's accelerated our digital footprint in South Africa.
Global challenges require global solutions. Droughts, floods, pestilence, these know no borders, nor do the effects on health and the environment. We'll eventually find a vaccine for COVID, but there's no vaccine for climate change or the destruction of biodiversity.
Over the course of the next few months, we will be on a resilience journey with 12 South African green SMMEs. The output of this project, conducted within the frames of strategic partnerships for the implementation of the Paris Agreement, will be a green recovery policy paper based on and informed by the work of the Green Outcomes Fund in helping green SMMEs retain jobs and ensure sustainability.
I'm Megan van Vlaanderen. I'm the Chief Financial Officer at Green Cape, and I'm also the project lead for the Green Outcomes Fund, which is a partnership between National Treasury's Jobs Fund and Green Cape. The process for the policy development was to include international knowledge and local knowledge around the just transition, green recovery policies that have been implemented elsewhere, and then also combine this with the 12 small businesses that we're going to follow over the next 6 months to follow what their key barriers are and how we can help them scale and grow after the pandemic. So objective of the seminars and the policy papers, we really want to have the conversation with the right people, and we want people who can actually put things into action. We had 4 breakaway groups. We looked at something that was quite important was ecosystem support. Internationally, we've got a lot of the International Cleantech Network, we've got the C40 Cities clustering, then business associations as well. And we wanted to see how we can collaborate with one another and use each other's skills and knowledge as we put together this policy. Then we looked at how do we measure success? What is success? At the end of these 6 months, what were we wanting to achieve? We also looked at barriers for the SMEs. We wanted input directly from them to see what these really are, what we can tick, what we can deal with, or what needs further conversations around getting to the outcome. Green Cape's mission is for a thriving, prosperous Africa, which is mobilized by the green economy. And we believe that green SMEs are a key part of this. And a successful green SME going forward will really form part of the green recovery process.
Winston Churchill famously said, "Never let a good crisis go to waste." And so a green recovery opportunity is in essence a chance to make lemons into lemonade. We're about to borrow 10 trillion euros from the youth. The choices we make today on spending will affect their tomorrow. Therefore, it's incumbent upon us to make those choices in a sustainable fashion so as to lessen the burden on them.
Global solidarity, open and fair trade, and multilateralism are more important than ever. We need to join forces to define together global approaches and standards for a green recovery.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mike. That was very inspiring. We have a short opportunity for a quick question. Mike, can you give us an idea of the impact your industrial symbiosis program is making, and what is the potential impact? How scalable is your program?
Thanks very much, Albertus. I think in the video what we saw was the representation of the sorts of SMEs that we can support to grow a circular economy in South Africa. SMEs working in energy, SMEs working in waste management, SMEs working in Internet of Things and smart cities. Over the last 5 or 6 years, Greencape has run an industrial symbiosis project working with about 800 manufacturing companies. And through that project, we've diverted about 100,000 tons of waste from landfill and unlocked significant economic value with those companies using a circular economy approach. And I think as a country and as a planet, as we figure out how to respond to COVID and what sorts of companies we want to see survive on the far side of this current crisis, we have an opportunity to build back better. And I think the SMEs will be at the forefront of that. I think you're on mute, Albert.
Yeah, now my chance to make that mistake. Thank you very much, Mike. Yeah, I think we can move on to the next person on the panel. Thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you.
So next we have Mr. Shane van der Nest, who is the General Manager of Huhtamakkie South Africa, and he will chat to us about circularity in packaging. So get your questions ready in the meantime. You can use that button, ask a question, to post your question. And then after Mr. van der Nest has done his presentation, we can go into questions. Do we have Shane there? Yep, there we go. Shane, if you can also just unmute yourself.
There we go. Can everybody see the presentation? I assume so. Is everything all right? Is the presentation coming up there? Can everyone see? Is it, am I clear?
Yes, it just went away.
Oh, there we go. Okay, folks, I'm Shane van der Nest. I head up a Finnish company in South Africa called Huhtamakkie. We have various divisions in this company, which I'll take you through the slide presentation of, and we are very serious about sustainability, and we are becoming very more focused on circular economy. We've already done a couple of initiatives and invested quite a large sum of funding, which you'll see towards the end of the presentation. Just a bit of perspective on the actual scale and size of Huhtamakkie. These numbers are posted because we are a listed entity in Finland. So many of you have probably seen this if you follow the share price tracking of European companies. We've got 81 manufacturing sites around the world. We operate in 35 different countries, and obviously we have quite a large number of employees. We specialize in packaging material. We sell our product directly into food manufacturers, into any type of food that needs to get to a consumer. That's where you will find a Huhtamakkie offering. You can see the products that we actually serve into the market. One of our biggest clusters.
Sorry, Shane. I think your presentation is not moving on. If you can just maybe put it in presentation mode there.
In presentation mode. Not sure why it's not working. Is it changing?
I don't see a change on my screen here.
We've got a bit of a power problem, so my connectivity is not fantastic. The substation blew up in Springs, but
oh my goodness,
everything's looking good from my side. Is it coming through there, Lo?
I'm not seeing the slides. I'm just seeing the first slide. I think we'll get our technical guy as well to look at that.
Let me try and unshare and share again. Maybe that will help us.
Yes. It seems like he's sharing one screen, but not the other one.
Very odd. Anything happening now?
There we go.
Okay. Okay. So these are some of the products that we serve into the food service areas. We specialize a lot into QSRs, where you've got your brands like Kentucky Fried Chicken and McDonald's and Burger King. Those are a couple of our big customers. We also look after the agricultural market. We supply a lot of fruit packaging, egg packaging. So about 80% of eggs that are transported around South Africa and around 60% that are transported around the world come from one of our factories. Those products are all manufactured from recycled material or recyclable material. Our value proposition is very simply in front of you. It's customer centricity. Obviously, we get very much involved with the customer, but not just our customer. We're also very interested in how we can influence the consumer. And we find that influencing the consumer and the way that they purchase a product is fundamental to the sustainability and longevity of a circular economy. Every single bit of success hinges on how the consumer actually perceives his environment that he's living in. We've got multiple technologies inside of our basket, and we manage to generally use all three of these technologies to ensure a sustainable offering to the end consumer. Just a quick statistic from around the globe. You can see that main items found in coastal cleanup, cigarette butts, food wrappers, straws, stirrers, plastic cutlery, bags, bottle, and bottle cap. So why I'm showing you this slide is that we as Huhtamaki are targeting all types of single-use plastic contaminants. We are trying to take a single-use plastic offering and convert that into a fiber offering, which is pretty much 100% biodegradable. I've spoken about the consumer sentiment. We focus on that. We are looking at the plastic substitution. Innovation is key for us. We're also focusing not just on 2021, but we're looking ahead to 2030. We're trying to understand how the market's going to emerge, where the next billion customers are going to come from. How do we speak to them both in a digital form and something that actually makes sense to them and the everyday person? And how do we influence them to start looking at the environment more constructively? So we've got three key areas that we see circular economy coming through. We've already addressed a lot of the single-use plastic opportunities within our customer base by supplementing fiber and PE and PPE. We've got the value chain offering, which we've partnered with certain entities. The circular pilot projects, one of them you'll see is in South Africa. And I've just got one small slide on what we've actually done in South Africa with one of our big customers, McDonald's. We've got a cradle to grave approach when we start speaking about supplying into the likes of the QSR market. So just before COVID-19 crippled the world, we were very, very much involved with collecting used cups and cartons from McDonald's, then bringing that back and feeding it through a high-density pulper, which we invested in. That high-density pulper is in Springs, in Johannesburg. We were looking at creating job opportunities through the collectible from these various McDonald's outlets, bringing it all back, stripping out the poly, and then making egg boxes out of it, which then would go straight back into the soil after the consumer had used the product. So the pulper capacity is quite vast. As you can see, it's around 1.7 tons of waste in one batch. And we're running around 1,500 tons of waste through that specific pulper every month. Huhtamaki is turning 100 years old this year. We chose a fantastic year to actually do a celebration. But that being said, we have agreed to donate 3 million euros into circular economy and sustainability projects around the globe. 875,000 of that has been earmarked for sustainability and circular economy projects in South Africa. We are busy going through the phase of it now and busy appointing partners to take us into the next step. That process should be completed by the end of this year. And then we will take that money and try and make a difference in the circular economy environment around wasteful landfill, around education of consumers, and more importantly, make sure that we have a sustainable option that is actually going to make a difference for generations to come. Not just a quick hoot and wave exercise where some European company comes in, drops some money into South Africa, into Africa, and then everyone gets a t-shirt, we all wave and then move on. We're looking at it more seriously. We want to make a big difference. We want to change the way people view their behavior when it comes to the way that they procure and dispose of packaging materials that they come into contact with every day. And that is the end of the show. So if there are any questions, if anybody wants to contact me, please feel free to do that. We, as I say, very serious about this.
Thank you, Shane. And yeah, what a year for celebrations. Happy birthday. I think we have time for one quick question. Can you maybe say something about the business case for circular packaging? How would the overall cost compare between circular and non-circular packaging?
We're still in the infancy stage of unpacking that whole model. So it's very difficult to say at the moment, and it's very difficult to operate in an effective manner with the current legislation that's looming around. You know, the state itself doesn't have a clear direction on circular economy. There are bits and pieces of excellence, especially down in the Western Cape, where you find waste tech projects taking place, where one of the previous speakers alluded to collecting from households directly. That is a very, very effective mechanism, and we do a lot of business with those guys. So there are pockets of excellence, but there are more pockets that are available for improvement and influence. And I think that's where we need to start making a difference.
Great, thank you so much, Shane. Great, so we are going to move on to the next person. Our next panelist is Mr. Koen Bakker, all the way from the Netherlands. And he is the marketing manager of the Waste Transformers. And he will show us how we can transform food waste into value.
Hi, good morning. My name is Koen Bakker and I'm working for the Waste Transformers in Amsterdam. These 5 minutes, I want to bring you the story of the world of waste. Not a very sexy subject, but I believe it is a very important subject. Did you know that the amount of waste being produced in Africa every day equals a football field of 10 meters deep, 10 meters high? Every day this amount of waste is being produced in South Africa. And of this waste, 90% is landfilled or dumped. Only 10% is recycled, which is causing a lot of problems. South Africa can do something about it. For example, to place a couple of incineration plants in and around the big cities and produce renewable energy. I place it between brackets, as you might know that it's not really renewable energy, but also it takes another 10 years to construct them and place them in different locations. And probably South Africa doesn't have a lot of time to wait on this. What you see in Europe is they have legally binding targets for recycling in the European Union, which means that by the end of 2023, all food waste and other bio-waste needs to be either collected separately or recycled at the source. In Western Cape, similar things are happening. They have now a 100% ban on organic waste to landfill, which is implemented in 2027, and they already have a halfway target of 50% by 2022. So that is for consumers, but also for businesses. So they need to look for solutions, what they're going to do with their organic waste streams. We have thought about it, and that's why we have developed our waste transformer. A waste transformer is a small-scale anaerobic digester. And this installation you place next to a building, an organization, or another place where food waste or other organic waste streams are being produced. The advantage is that you don't have to transport your organic waste to landfill or to other locations anymore, but you keep it on site. You feed it every day with a similar amount of organic waste. The system is completely modular and scalable, so it starts from 350 kilos and it can transform up to 3,600 kilos per day. And it is compliant with all strict EU and health and safety rules. It also has a healthy business case because it produces clean energy, it produces heat, it produces fertilizer, and you save on your gate fee, so your waste management fees. It is monitored 24/7 online by us, and it also has low maintenance cost. For example, last year we placed a waste transformer at N1 City Mall in Cape Town. This was partly funded by EEP, and this demonstration location gave us a real kickstart in South Africa. We learned a lot, and now we are ready to go to the new level. So what they did in Cape Town is that all the waste from the mall was collected every day and was being fed inside the waste transformer. There it stayed for another 21 days. It was fed every day with a new amount of waste. Biomethane is formed, and the biomethane is sent to the control container. In the control container, the biomethane is cleaned and then sent into the power box, and that turns it into electricity and heat. So it works like similar as a solar panel. Because of the funding by EEP, we learned a lot, and we are now ready to go to the next stage, where we're going to use the organic waste streams to feed hydroponic systems, so the vertical farms. This is what we're going to do in another winery in the area of Cape Town. And I also want to tell you a little bit more about the projects we do in, for example, Amsterdam. This is a former prison, and this prison is rebuilt into one of the most innovative neighborhoods in Amsterdam. This is the Green Tower now, and our waste transformer is taken out of the containers, and it comes out of the floor as a kind of mushrooms. All the organic waste streams from this new neighborhood is being transformed in this waste transformer, and it feeds the organic waste streams, feed the vertical park and the balconies and the plants in this same neighborhood. Another project is in Freetown, where we're going to place 40 waste transformers in and around Freetown. And in this way, that waste is not being sent to landfill anymore. You see me here standing on one of those landfills, but it's turned into value. The technology is ready for hotels, airports, university, communities, and other food waste production companies. And if you want to see the video of, for example, the waste transformer at N1 City Mall, you can scan this QR code and you can watch the video after all the presentations. I want to thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email.
I think, yes, we have Koen there live from Amsterdam. Hartelijk bedankt, Koen, briljant. Maybe if you can tell us a little bit more about the fertilizer that you produce through this amazing machine. And you are going to use it now at a winery in Cape Town, right? Will you grow hydroponic wine?
Yeah, correct. Many companies still use artificial fertilizer, and artificial fertilizer is based on oil or natural gas. So in that sense, it's already polluting to use artificial fertilizer. It also depletes the soil. So in the long term, the soil gets addicted to artificial fertilizer. So it is much better to use an organic fertilizer. So what we do is we digest the waste. We take all the nutrients which are in the waste and we turn that into a digestate. The digestate is nitrificated, which means it is stabilized. And from there, you can use it as an organic fertilizer. So in that way, you create a circular economy around waste, but also around food, because you take the nutrients out of the soil and now you're going to put them back into the soil.
Fantastic. If you have any questions for Koen, please post them. There's another question here, Koen. How expensive is something like this? Is it something that a small business or a bunch of neighbors can club together and get?
It has a different pricing structure. So the smaller unit starts from around 180, 200,000 euros, which goes up to the biggest installation up to around 350, 400,000 euros. But I don't think that's the most important point. I think the most important point is the business case, because you earn the installation back within 2 to 5 to 8 years, depending on your current electricity cost, current heat cost, on your waste management cost, because normally you pay a company collecting your waste. When you have a waste transformer on site, you don't have this cost anymore, so it is a saving. And the digestate can be sold on the market as well. So in that way, we see different locations where they have a very good payback time because they can sell the fertilizer on the market, or they have a very high energy bill.
We have one more question here. The question is, how does the amount of energy that you generate compare to something like a solar panel, for example?
Yeah, very good question. It depends on what kind of waste you throw in. So it's the same like for your stomach. When you're eating a green salad, you don't get a lot of energy out of it. But when you eat a French fries with mayonnaise, you do produce a lot of energy. So it's the same like when you throw in a good density of organic waste, which is fresh, because you feed the installation every day. So in that way, the methane is stored in that waste, or it actually produces the methane. So for example, the smallest installation will produce a yearly output of electricity of 15 Dutch households. So in other countries, it can be more, it can be less, and the bigger installations grow with the amount of waste that's being produced. But if people have really specific questions about that, they can always drop me a line or send me an email.
Dank u wel.
You're welcome.
Great, and we will move on to the next one. We are going to go to Lithuania next. We have Mr. Gediminas Judzentas, who is the marketing director of the Auga Group, and he will chat to us about the circular organic farming model that they are using. Let's see if we have Auga there.
Hello, could you unmute? Okay, the video, yeah?
Yeah, perfect.
Hi, hope you hear me well. I will share my screen. Okay, so I'm here to represent the company Auga Group, and I will tell you how we implement the circular economy principles in our sustainable organic farming model. So first of all, about the company, Auga Group is the largest organic vertically integrated food producer in Europe. We are specializing in three major branches of agriculture, which is crop growing, dairy farming. Also, we are one of the biggest mushroom growers in the region, and we convert our own organic raw materials into final packaged consumer goods. So the four main branches of agriculture and final consumer goods. We are operating in around almost 40,000 hectares of organically certified arable land here in Lithuania, employ over 1,200 people, and export to more than 30 countries worldwide, including South Africa. And also we are a listed company. And another important fact that I would like to mention about the company is that we are the first company in the Baltic states to issue green bonds, first non-government-owned company in the Baltic states to issue green bonds, and that also proves our orientation, strategic orientation towards sustainability. So how it all works in practice. The three branches of agriculture are very much integrated. They work in closed loop, and the waste of one process actually becomes the input of another branch, the input of another process. So if we take crop growing, obviously crops are feed for dairy cows, and the manure from dairy cows is actually the only fertilizer that is allowed to use in the organic agriculture, since we cannot use any chemical fertilizers. If we take mushroom production, mushrooms also need compost, which comes from straws and manure. So again, includes two other branches of agriculture, and the outcome, the waste of mushroom growing, the used compost becomes a perfect organic fertilizer for crops. So it looks quite a simplified model, but the one thing to note here is that usual organic agriculture does not require all of that. And we as a company use more than, we do more than just the standard of organic agriculture. So apart from the circular closed loop farming model, we also use min tillage technology, which enables to preserve biodiversity, to increase the fertility of soil. Also, we use 100% certified green energy. We carefully select the packaging materials for our final consumer products, and etc. All of this actually is not enough. And the main problem, the main issue that the world is facing today, obviously, is the climate change caused by greenhouse gas emissions. And not many people know that actually agriculture is one of the main contributors to this issue. And almost a quarter of all greenhouse gas globally is produced by agriculture sector. Organic agriculture by itself it has no chance of solving this issue. And we clearly need some breakthrough technologies, and we clearly need some more investment into agriculture in order to mitigate this issue. Currently, the big problem that agriculture is facing, both organic agriculture and conventional agriculture, is that they by themselves cannot resolve this issue. As we can see, currently conventional farming is very efficient, but it has huge environmental impact. And organic farming, by being more planet friendly, is still very inefficient. And in a way, when we look at the impact on the environment per unit of production, it can be argued that that sometimes it's really not enough. The way we see it, and strategically, the way we see the future of agriculture and the model that we are developing is aiming to address these key bottlenecks and to achieve the high efficiency and high sustainability farming model in organic agriculture. So in practice, the current circular model that we use will be supplemented by three new components. First of all, it is the biogas infrastructure, the biogas cycle, from collecting biogas, converting biogas from the waste and manure into the biomethane fuel for farming machinery. And also we are developing the machinery ourselves, which will be running on this biogas fuel. Second is the specialized feed technology, which will not only improve the sustainability aspect, specifically it will reduce the methane emissions from the ruminant digestion processes from dairy cows, and also it will improve the efficiency of the dairy segment. And the third thing, the very important thing in crop growing, is the crop rotation, which would ensure that a bigger share of the fields will be covered with the leguminous grasses, which will be used for feed instead of grain, which is mainly done today in many conventional and also organic farms. And this leguminous grass, having the carbon sequestration properties, the nitrogen fixation properties, actually will be very much more sustainable than any other crops which are used today. As a result, having implemented these three main technologies, we will address more than 80% of the total greenhouse gas emissions that we as a company produce. And we can assume, we can make an assumption that many other agricultural companies and agriculture sectors are also facing the same main issues, which are the fossil fuels, the emissions from fossil fuels, the emissions from dairy segment, the emissions from agriculture itself, from crop growing. And having implemented the technologies, we will be able to reduce the emissions from the use of fossil fuels by 50%, reduce the emissions from 1 unit of milk produced by 50%, and to reduce emissions from unit of agricultural produce by 30%. To summarize it all, we aim as a company, as a brand, to become a synonym of sustainable food and lifestyle, and our mission is to deliver organic food with no cost to nature. This is not only addressing the consumers who want to eat in a more sustainable way, it will also include farmers, because our sustainable organic farming model will be scalable, and it will be able to connect other farmers to provide the technologies for a more sustainable agriculture. It will create a financial platform for lenders to join and to invest in a more sustainable way. And at the end of the day, the shareholders will be able to receive a more sustainable way of financial returns. Thank you.
Ačiū, Gediminas. Yes, if you have any questions for Gediminas, thank you. This is very, very impressive, very inspiring. Please post your questions. So there's one question coming through. When you talk about grains for cattle, are you saying that you actually don't feed the grains directly to the cattle, but you grow them in a kind of a grass that the cattle then eat, and that reduces the methane production?
I'm not specifically an agronomist and a specialist, but I can tell you from what I know, working with the communication and marketing in the company, the thing is that in any way, cattle need protein, which is the source of feed is protein. So one of the way to get protein for food, for feed, is grain. Another way, the original source of protein is in the grass, in the leguminous grass, which is a more sustainable type of crop. And the technology that we are developing is to be able to use this source, alternative source of feed, and to prepare it in a way that it would be more digestible, it would bring more nutrients for cattle, and at the same time, it will be prepared in a way that it would reduce the emissions, the methane emissions, which come from the ruminants' digestion process. And we will be able to measure it. Actually, the technologies are all there, how to measure the actual emissions of the sample cows that you take, and you can really experiment and try with the different kinds of feed and see what is the impact on the final emissions. And at the same time, we would resolve the another bottleneck, which is the productivity bottleneck. Because again, in organics, if you cannot use certain supplements, if you cannot use certain chemical materials, then that issue of production, of productivity per cow also becomes an issue of sustainability, right? Because we aim to produce food in a sustainable way. So that means that it is not only has to be produced in a nature-friendly way, but it also has to be efficient so that we have enough produce.
Thank you very much. There's one or two more questions, but we've been running out of time. So thank you so much, Mr. Gediminas. We are going to move on to our next panelist. So right now, my good friend Very Shaba, who is an award-winning engineer and founder and CEO of Green Design. And Very will chat to us about the circular economy in property and construction.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Vitus. And this has been such a great session so far. I'm learning so much, so this is good. I just want to share my screen. Sorry for the delay. Okay, I'm struggling to share my screen, so I don't know if we can just have the technical team share my screen. For some reason, my window is not popping up, the one for PowerPoint.
Ah, there it goes.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you very much. So we'll just go to the first slide, and I'll just start off with, can we go to the title slide, please? I'll just start off by saying that we definitely will not have enough time to really go into the depth of the circular economy within property and construction. And so definitely happy to speak more about that. If we go to the second slide, just an introduction of who I am. So I am Very Shaba, and I'm the CEO and founder of Green Design, which specializes in high performance buildings. And what that means is that it's energy efficient, water efficient, waste efficient. Last year, I was the Yebo Finland Circular Economy Campaign Ambassador for the Embassy of Finland. And I think it was in that moment where I really started to understand what the circular economy is. And the whole idea of just the campaign was really just to speak to the youth. So I do want to take a moment to acknowledge all the youth and all the young reporters who are on this call. I know that you're all part of this call, Desiree told me. But more than that, I think it's just important that that this is a discussion that we need to constantly have in terms of the circular economy and unpack it, because I didn't actually really understand how the circular economy was applied within the African context, but I'll speak a bit more about why that's the case. So if you go to the next slide, when you look at the circular economy, and we can go through the entire slide. So our tech team can just load the entire slide so that we can see the entire picture. When you look at the circular economy within buildings, we term it within the green building circles, we term it as net zero, which is looking at net zero carbon, net zero waste, net zero water. And that's kind of the terminology that we've been using. And net zero just means that what you produce is equal to what you consume, and that's net zero. But we're getting to a point within green buildings where now we're trying to see if we can even get regenerative, which means that you're almost net positive. So as a building, you're actually adding more value to the environment that you were. But if you look at buildings and why the circular economy within property and construction is so important, it's because buildings consume. So if you looked at, the last presenter spoke about agriculture is 25% of the global emissions. Buildings consume 40% or produce 40% of the greenhouse gas emissions. globally. And the thing about that, though, is that of that 40% that buildings are actually emitting when it comes to greenhouse gas emissions, almost 80% of that can actually be decreased if we just design better buildings when it comes to new construction, and if we just operate buildings more sustainably when it comes to existing buildings. And so it's one of those things where engineers can engineer this problem out of buildings, and it's really trying to understand how to go about doing that. And so the green building movement really started and really pushed and really accelerated between 2005 to 2015, and now we're at green buildings, and now we're slowly trying to get to net zero carbon buildings. And that specifically is aligned with the Paris Agreement that was signed and ratified during COP21. And that's why buildings are such a big thing to look at. And another thing when it comes to buildings, apart from just energy, if you look at water, it's 25% consumption of water is from buildings as well. And then when you look at waste, 25% of, or 60% of the waste that's in the landfills is actually construction, demolition, and excavation waste. That actually takes up the largest volume within landfills is construction waste. And so there's a lot of potential and opportunity within property and construction and the application of the circular economy. And if you go to the next slide to get a sense of where we are in terms of net zero and where we are just globally, these are the green building councils across the world that are looking into net zero, that are looking into circularity and are seeing how we can improve in terms of buildings. But if you look at the number of countries, that's not enough. We definitely need a lot more, but luckily South Africa is on that list, which means that we are getting there in terms of net zero. The next slide will just show you the principles that we use when it comes to green buildings. And because we don't have too much time, I think the main thing to look at is that they are there, they exist. And so it's looking at when it comes to buildings, instead of just constantly having this idea of you build and then you demolish. When it comes to new construction, it's about looking at how can you rebuild, how can you reuse and reoperate, how can you redesign a space. So how do you repurpose a space so that you just continue? Because the thing is that a lot of embodied carbon is in all of the building materials. And so we can't just be demolishing and sending that to landfill. We need to be able to find a way to repurpose, to redesign, to rebuild, to reuse and to reoperate. And if ever we get to the point of demolition, again, it goes back into the cycle of how do you continue to rebuild and redesign, reuse, reoperate, and repurpose. So that we're not constantly always trying to rebuild something, but actually repurposing a space that is currently in operation. The next slide is a case study example of what we mean by that. And this project actually happened 10 years ago, which means that we are very slow as a property sector and as property and construction, very slow in implementing this, because 10 years ago, this building is Vodafone building in Johannesburg. It was the first 6-star Green Star certified building by the Green Building Council of South Africa on the continent. And this building is designed in such a way that you can deconstruct it. So all of these, and in order to design a building to be deconstructed, you need to construct it with deconstruction in mind. And so all of these panels, all of these pieces, and it's also, can actually be deconstructed once the building is done. That's how it was built. Another thing about this building is that it's net positive energy, which means that it's actually producing more energy that it consumes. But because we weren't yet able to feed it back into the grid, the building is actually then powering the building next door because of our legislation that differs across the different cities. So the next slide is just to identify, so what is the problem? 10 years later, why do we have that in terms of the growth, in terms of net zero or circular buildings within the property sector? And I think it really is that there is a disconnect between the different institutions that have to be a part of the circular economy and implementing that specifically within the property industry. And so there's that disconnect between the private sector, research institutions, and public sector. And I don't have time to really go into detail about that, but the disconnect within our sector as a property and construction industry is the reason why some of these circular principles are not really feeding into each other the way that they need to. Government does have a circular economy roadmap that they're implementing, but is the private sector ready? And are they also equipped from an education perspective to answer, to be able to implement some of these things? And so the last slide is really just to say that what we need, so knowing that there is a disconnect within the property and construction sector, and knowing that we know the principles on how to get a circular, how to apply the circular economy within buildings. And this ranges from energy to water to waste to materials. I think buildings are probably the best examples of ways in which one can use the circular economy, because it's not a very expensive exercise when it comes to circular economy in buildings versus, you know, circular economy in mining or agriculture. But this is one of those things where you just have to design it better as engineers and as architects and as quantity surveyors. And so knowing all of this, one of the case studies is really just a project that Growth Point through Property Point had piloted this year, which was getting education into people so that they can understand within the sector, so they can first of all understand what the circular economy is, and then really trying to bridge the gap between the body of knowledge about the circular economy and then the property practitioners, because there's such a disconnect between the two. And I think once that connects together, then we'll be able to start speaking the same language. There are too many councils within the property sector in South Africa, and all of them really need to understand circular economy, because it's not just for engineers, architects, it's for the property developers as well, and even the financial institutions. And so, yeah, and so that's, the next slide is just the last slide, so it doesn't really matter, but it's just as really to speak about that this kind of discussion around buildings will continue next week with the World Green Building Week that's happening. And so that's obviously where we'll talk more about the circular economy. And that's really it from my side. I mean, we've only just started the discussion. 5 minutes is not enough, or 10, it's not enough.
Yes, thank you so much, Very. We unfortunately ran out of time as well for questions, but you are very active on social media, I believe. And people can continue to interact with you. Thank you so much. Okay, so our second last presentation is by Ms. Genevieve de Silva, who is the Program Manager of the Green Matter Partnership. And her topic is Imvelisi, Developing Africa's Enviropreneurs.
Good morning, everyone. Very good to be here. Thank you for this very interesting discussion. I'm going to share my screen with you all so that you can see what it is I'm talking about. Give me 1 second. Okay, so, you know, we know that in South Africa, there's roughly 300 business incubators or enterprise development programs. But, you know, people have a very difficult time trying to figure out whether their concept or idea is actually feasible, especially in the green space. You know, we work with environmental entrepreneurs, which we have very sweetly called enviropreneurs. And these people are working in water, waste, circular economy, bioprospecting. There's a whole range of enviropreneurs that we like to attract. We also understand these are very highly technical and specialized businesses that require a lot of input and a lot of tweaking when it comes to their ideas. So there seems to be quite a high barrier to entry for many green entrepreneurs. So this creates a very nice business niche for people who are looking to start a business, especially if you have come from an environmental background and you have either a circular economy solution or something that could deal with you know, improving water supply or sustainable use of water. And many people, you know, produce these kinds of ideas, but they haven't factored in many of the complex problems that need to be solved and the different approaches that they need to take. So we've come up with a program that really helps people enter the next phase of their business development cycle, which is to enter into the incubation phase, and also to help them to develop a prototype that is easy to enter into the market with. So that's where Imveliси comes in. You know, the reason for a lot of the challenges that people face when coming up with a business idea is that they may not understand what the basic feasibility of a business looks like. They don't really know the ideal target market. The idea is too complex because the environmental problem they're solving is very complex. So they need to simplify it and create a value add for the environmental sector. And one of the previous speakers said, you need to create value. And it's not really about only just creating an ecological or eco-friendly product. It's about generating value for the end user. So we have this contextual understanding of what's happening in the landscape at Imvelisi, and we understand that people really are struggling to get into incubation programs in an environmental context, even though there are those that exist. And we help them to really gain access into those opportunities by just getting their idea refined and something that is workable, that can be made into a bankable business idea. So Imvelisi support draws from support from a range of stakeholders. Green Matter is a partnership organization, so these are all of our partners. The Department of Science and Innovation, that says Science and Technology, my apologies. They are the main funders of the Imvelisi program. So what is ideation? It's the formation of ideas or concepts from the original concept to implementation. Ideation phase focuses on generating, developing, and evaluating ideas for launching innovative and new businesses. Many people kind of want to jump ahead and start without having really looked at whether their business idea really solves an environmental problem and can add value to a consumer. Some people only look to solve an environmental problem, and then the business case is not there. So we try to bring in specialists and mentors and trainers and really facilitate a very deep discussion around the concept that they want to explore. So what is our mission? Our mission is to promote entrepreneurial skills and capacity building of aspiring green entrepreneurs by facilitating and encouraging the entrepreneurship in the environmental sector. We really are here to educate, mentor, network, and increase access to opportunities for aspiring environmental entrepreneurs or enviropreneurs. We believe that participants should have the support they need to pursue an environmental and entrepreneurship career, and in time become role models for South Africa's green economy and potentially the world's green economy. So what do? We have a national footprint with our program, and we work with a number of stakeholders to support the development of these enviropreneurs through a whole host of different activities. One is our bootcamp, which is the kind of cornerstone of what we do. And that is really ideation support for enviropreneurs. We help to critically analyze the feasibility of their business concepts and assign them a technical or business mentor. Many people need advice in the technical aspect of a particular discipline that they're working in, and they will then require a bit more guidance when it comes to, is this a feasible business idea? So then we bring in just a business mentor or business coach, and we help them really refine the idea. And obviously, as I said before, it's to prepare them for the next step, which is to either enter an incubation program or an enterprise development agency, or to to just start their business. And we have had a very good success rate amongst our enviropreneurs. Many of them have gone ahead and just started their businesses straight out of our boot camps because of the very intensive support that they get. So we are, as I mentioned, funded by the Department of Science and Innovation and in part the Department of Environmental Affairs. And Imveliso is a partnership between Young Water Professionals, Green Matter, the Water Research Commission, and the Water Institute of South Africa. So how do we do it? I'm sure you'll see at the bottom of my slide, one of our participants who just happens to have been nominated for the Mail and Guardian 200 Young South Africans under the Science and Technology category, Tembi Mahlangu. She says that Imveliso is an eye-opening, rigorous and compact but effective ideation program. So how we do it, we select people who have a good understanding of what environmental problems look like and how their business plans to solve these problems. We assess how entrepreneurial these people are. That's not to say we don't allow people who aren't necessarily entrepreneurial into our program. We accept them in really on the merit of their idea, and we work around their different skill sets. We help them analyze their business concept and work through many factors to get to an end result. We've had many participants say, oh my gosh, I want to give up on life. This has just taken me to a whole new direction that I wasn't expecting. We work with a business model canvas and we assess the feasibility. At the end of the training, they pitch to a Shark Tank simulation, and the winning participants will get a mentor for 3 months, business and technical mentor, to really refine and take them out into the stratosphere with their idea. And then they work on a business plan with their mentor and go on to the next steps of their development. So here's some of our previous participants. They raw. I'm not too sure why they decided to raw, but they have fun together and they network. Here's some more participants. We've supported about 213 so far, and many of them have gone on to start successful businesses. And here are the ideation training that we do and the networking sessions that they attend. We try to integrate everything that we do into the bigger picture of South Africa, especially in terms of the environmental sector, and we navigate around all of the various role players in the sector to advocate for entrepreneurship development and just giving people access to all the different resources that they need to be able to start a business that is as technical and as specialized as some environmental and environmentally focused businesses can be. So one of the tools that we use is a Green Economy Market Opportunity Report, which we have, I see one of our colleagues is here from Green Cape. Green Cape actually assisted us in compiling this document, and they did a lot of research in terms of market readiness, capital costs, all the very basic understanding that you'd need to just start a business in the green economy. And we give these to participants to just assess whether or not their idea is very good or would have legs. I see my time is up, but before we go, I would like to share with you, we are perfectly timed. We are we've just released a call for our online bootcamp for this year, and the deadline is on the 28th of September. So please do apply if you have any good environmental business ideas. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. I know time goes much faster than one thinks.
Yes.
So unfortunately, again, we don't have time for questions, but thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Thank you very much.
So we are down to our last presenter for this discussion. And from the tropical coastal city of Durban, we have Mr. Stephen Gray. He is the co-founder of Baobab Durban and Makerspace Foundation. And he will demonstrate how we can get innovative with waste design. Steve, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, bro.
I'm waiting for the host to start my video.
Okay, cool.
All right, excellent. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Very excited that we are all working towards a better future, cleaner future, and excited to share some of the work we've been doing over the last few months, which is a culmination of years of work. But you know, we talk a lot about the theory of how to change and how to impact, and we're starting to see some green shoots here. So hopefully I can take you on a little journey. Okay, so let me start off with Rafiqua here. We're in our innovative waste design lab, and she's wearing a COVID-19 face shield. And what are you doing, Rafiqua?
So right now we've just collected our bottle tops and we are sorting them out by color and as well as by type. And we're going to be shredding them into plastic plates.
So we collect bottle tops and we've built the shredding machine to shred them down based on an open source design.
Switch it off, safety first. And it's plastic plates. And from the plates, you take it into the injector. Where from the injector, you grab.
So the injector now we're going to hand over to Cornele. Cornele.
Yeah. So we're busy with this production for a client. Someone paid us to do this out of recycled plastic. I'm going to show you how we get this out. Take the mold into the injection machine.
And what Cornelia is doing is she's injecting molten plastic at 250 degrees into the mold, and that's going to form the product around the metal mold, which obviously is not going to melt. And you can see it's a manual process. So normally injection molding is automated process with very expensive machines. This is a much lower cost version of that process, but still does basically the same thing. And she's going to have a look at the mold and see that the plastic is coming to the end, and so the mold is full. Okay.
So now the mold is full. We're going to take the mold out of the machine and take it into the water. So let's do that.
So you can see there that was quite warm. And while that's cooling down, I'll show you some of the other products that we've actually built. And you guys saw the face shields.
Just check your sound again, Steve.
The sound. You guys good?
Back. Yeah, good.
Okay, and here's some of the other products. This is a mold for a comb that we've made. And yeah, so the idea of the project is how can we empower people to use recycled products and make things that have commercial value. So it's no good if we can't commercialize the outputs, because then it's not sustainable. So all of the projects we're thinking about, how do we bring small commercial projects that can empower people, they can be self-employed to run those projects, those products. And here's two more of our young innovators. So
hi everyone, my name is Doro, and this is Peter Strange. We're part of a brand called Irrevo that is here to make a space. Right now we're doing a tote bag made from recycled banners that we got from your advertising banners. This is one of our examples. One of our cool example. It's a tote bag made from a recycled banner.
Yeah, another one? What is that?
This is sort of a sling bag.
Very nice.
For carrying your phones, all your accessories, make sure they're all together in place.
Cool. So as you can see, the point is not just to be one-dimensional, but to try and innovate in how we deal with waste, all types of waste. And yeah, we basically prototyping this idea. We would love support wherever we can get it. So if any of you guys want to help us and work with us and see how we can extend this thing to have a bigger impact and impact more people's lives, then please let us know. That's it from my demo. If you guys have any questions, I think we might have a minute left.
Yes, please go shoot if you have any questions for Steve. Steve, in the meantime, there's one question. Was this your own idea, or did you get inspired somewhere to go for this?
Yeah, so this is definitely built off our whole ethos at the Makespace is to have an open source mentality, to share ideas. So a lot of this is built off the precious plastic idea. The machine that we built in the corner there was one of the earlier implementations of the precious plastic. And we're working with a partner from Austria who makes these better quality CE certified, but based off precious plastic, which is a great sort of project online, but hasn't had a very practical outcome. In other words, in theory, it's good, but the machines need to really do the work. They need to be workhorses, and we haven't got to that stage. So we're trying to build an ecosystem from sales, business development, training, product development, design, so that at the end of the day, we can actually get the throughput, get the plastic in and then get it out in the sense of products, create economic opportunities. So there's a lot of work to do there. It's not a simple one-step process.
Another question, Steve. What you are bringing to the fore are aspects about circularity and economy that is about more than money. What are some of the other values and fringe benefits of the circular economy?
So, for us, the social impact is huge. In South Africa, it's really the cornerstone of life. It's very hard, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, to tell people who can't, afford to buy food that they should litter, or they should take better care of the environment, or they should make more informed, conscious decisions on consumer behavior. So I think, we've got to look at it as an integrated solution. We're wanting to reduce environmental impact and increase social impact and positive social impact. And that's why we've kind of knitted these two things together. We've been doing training for 7 years at the Makerspace, but in the last year, we've really seen the way that we can integrate the green economy and circular design into our project. So the real dream is to have an online platform where we can connect with designers around the world. And then those designers share product designs that the consumers are asking for, and our technicians end up finding a way to make those products. And we can then make those in a distributed network. They don't have to be in one physical location, but using waste as a primary input for those products, and then being able to sell that for a commercial gain so that they can pay for their cost of living.
Brilliant. Another question, where can one find spaces like this, and what can I do if I want to create a maker space in my community?
Yeah, what you can do, if you want to make a small fortune in maker spaces, you just need to start with a big fortune. So it's a very thankless job. It'll cost you a lot of money, of your own money, and you basically have to do it as a side project to any other income generating projects you have. But we've built it's taken us about 5 years to find a business model where we find a third party to sponsor the training. So, the people getting trained can't afford to pay what it costs to train them. Setting up a space like this is expensive. So really, we've got to work together. We've got to partner with people. And I think the answer to the question is you have to collaborate. That's the simple answer is you can't do it on your own. You can't do it in your local community by yourself. You need to collaborate with people with funds. You need to collaborate with people with skills. You need to collaborate with people with experience. And we're very open to collaborating. As I said, we take a very open source approach. So, we're all about sharing the knowledge and trying to help empower other people. So please, let's chat if you really want to get involved.
Brilliant. I love it. I want to come and visit.
You're welcome. You're all welcome to come visit. We're actually having the French ambassador here on Thursday afternoon, which is quite a privilege. So we'll love to have any one of you here as well.
Thank you very much, Steve, and thank you to everybody in the background.
Cheers, guys. Wait, bye.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you, Steve. Okay, we are coming almost to the end of our whole discussion today. We are going to have something about opportunities, and then I will make a few summary notes about the whole discussion. and then we will end off with a video. So life is all about opportunities, and now we will hear from both the Swedish and the Finnish embassies about some great opportunities to cooperate. So first of all, we have Ms. Amy Larsen-Jane, who is the Charge d'Affaires of the Embassy of Sweden, and then Ms. Mariana Hipponen, who is the Charge d'Affaires of the Embassy of Finland.
Right, thank you very much. I will say just a few words about the work that we are doing at the Swedish Embassy this week as part of the 2020 Team Europe Climate Diplomacy Week. The Swedish Embassy has decided to this week focus on food and something called the Eat Smart Challenge. So the hashtag for that is the Eat Smart Challenge essay. This is a way of inspiring ourselves and others to just explore the way we eat and buy food and prepare food to make sure we do it in a sustainable way. And it's also going to be quite fun. We've already covered one day yesterday of eating vegetarian. We have one day where we're exploring new food. We have a zero waste day where you really look at trying to make sure that the food that you eat, that you use all of it. And to help us with this, we've actually created a cookbook together with the embassy chef, a South African chef who adds some South African flavors to some Swedish and other recipes. So please follow us on Sweden in SA, and also please join us in this fun challenge. The Eat Smart Challenge essay is the hashtag, and you have a chance of winning one of these brilliant cookbooks. So I think we'll have the video to also show a little bit of the work we've done. Thank you.
The Embassy of Sweden, supported by the Swedish Institute and part of the Team Europe Climate Diplomacy Week, have put together a 7-day call to action inviting participants to challenge the way they eat. Globally, the event has already inspired hundreds of participants from more than 75 countries to take on the challenge, and now it's time for South Africa. This online campaign, that through 7 hands-on challenges, raises awareness and helps people understand why our choice of food matters. And as a constant reminder, beyond this week, the Swedish Embassy has created a cookbook which invites you into our kitchen and gardens to take in a few tastes and tips about eating smart for a sustainable future. We hope to stir up an appetite in our readers through sustainable recipes which have a little Swedish inspiration and a lot of South African flavor. All ingredients can be sourced locally. The recipes in this cookbook are inspired by the kitchen and garden staff who are all about going green and utilizing all produce from top to toe.
So today we're preparing a duo of salmon trout. Rainbow salmon trout in South Africa is on the green list, on the SASSI list. So it's one of the more sustainable fishes, which is why we've chosen to use it. And then we will also make sure we've used all the components of the fish.
Out of the whole popo that the chef was using, we have got the peel, we are going to put it in the compost. That is going back in the soil. And me, out of the seeds, I'm going to plant another popo trees, because here, it's millions of them. So only one seed here is going to make a tree of a lot of popos. So we don't do waste.
We challenge you to make a lasting contribution to the Sustainable Development Goals and take your place in a green circular economy, starting with the Eat Smart Challenge.
Thank you very much, Amy. Your choice of timing is perfect. I'm very, very hungry now. And from Amy, we are going to Mariana Hipponen from the Finnish Embassy. Do we have Mariana available?
I'll mute my mic also. I think that's a classic.
Yeah.
But thank you anyway, Albertus, for the introductions. I'd like to talk about 2 different issues that are going on at the embassy at the moment. So one of them is a TEDx event that we're organizing related to food waste. So if we go on to the next slide, I'd like to just go through a few issues kind of as a backdrop to the topic on food waste. So just some few pointers that the first one being that a third of all of the food that South Africa produces ends up in the dump. And if we move to the next slide, we'll see that the energy we waste every year producing food we never eat could in fact light up Johannesburg for 16 weeks. And as a third pointer, to raise the fact that every year we waste the equivalent of 600,000 Olympic swimming pools producing food that we never eat. So with this backdrop, just going a bit further related to the topic, I mean, wastage of food has an impact on several areas of our lives. For example, food security, social sustainability, the environment, and the economy. So food waste is created unnecessarily throughout the whole food chain. So basically from farm to fork, everywhere in the world. Hence, solutions must also be created during each step of the way, both locally and globally. And one of the first steps is to raise awareness so that we can all start doing our part. So together, the Embassy of Finland and TEDx Johannesburg are organizing an event, very, very exciting online event on combating food waste, featuring both Finnish and South African experts talking about the hot topic on the 29th of September, so in a couple of weeks' time. So stay tuned for more information related to the event and follow us on our hashtag YeboFinland. You'll find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So if we move to the next slide, the next topic I wanted to raise has to do with our fund for local cooperation that we run from the Embassy of Finland. The FLC provides grant funding to South African civil society and private sector organizations. And the priorities for the fund for 2020-2021 include economic development and entrepreneurship, vibrant democracy, and functioning societies. A call for proposals is now open for circular economy projects. I'd just like to highlight the fact that the submission of the concept notes, the deadline is on the 18th of September, so there's a few days to go. The call for proposals target project proposals by innovation support organizations that provide acceleration services to innovative circular economy startups. And just to highlight the fact that we can't fund individual startup companies projects. And just to final comment is that 2 to 3 projects will be selected for support, and the grant funding per project is between 130 and 250,000 euros, and for a duration of 1 to 2 years. Details on related to the call for proposals can be found on the website of the Embassy of Finland. Thank you very much for your time.
Mariana, thank you so much. And this brings us almost to the end of our session together. Before we end with a short video, I just want to summarize everything that I kind of got as a takeaway from this. If you have ideas, please share your highlights, new insights that you picked up today, things that you've discovered, ideas that were triggered. And if you would like to have more discussions like this, please let us know. Yeah, for me, I would say there are 8 main takeaways that I got from today. And the first one is that the circular economy, the idea of the circular economy was created for a time like this. We are in a global crisis with COVID-19, and in this post-COVID-19 world, we need something like the circular economy that can actually, we need something like the circular economy, this idea that can actually help us to thrive. The second thing is urgency. We need to act with the same urgency and the same kind of global cooperation as we reacted to the pandemic. Like one of the speakers said, there's no vaccine for climate change and biodiversity loss. The third thing is that although many leaders seem to be motivated by short-term profit, there are people in high places who really get it, and they need our support. The fourth thing is that the circular economy is a brilliant idea, but it's also practical. It's something that we can do. The fifth thing is that it makes business sense. So many of the ideas that were shared are things that make sense from a business point of view, and that is very important. The sixth thing is that it is fair, it is just, eliminating things like negative externalities, creating job opportunities, involving the really vulnerable members of our society. The seventh thing is that it's really exciting. It's something to inspire us. It's something that one can share with your friends and with your relatives. And that brings me to the last point. The last takeaway for me is that we need to create a wave. We can be the evangelists that share this message of the circular economy and create this wave across South Africa, across the continent, and across the rest of the world. So thank you very much. If you have anything else that you want to add, please do so. Thank you to Team Europe, the EU, the European Commission, for organizing this Climate Diplomacy Week, especially the embassies of Finland, Sweden, and Lithuania for organizing today's awesome program, and each one of our speakers and our panel members. Thank you for sharing your passion, sharing your ideas, and taking your time with us today. And then lastly, all our audience members, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for the great questions, and have a safe journey from your computer screen to wherever you are going. And maybe I can just ask you to do two things. One is grab a piece of paper and write down 3 things on the one side of the paper and 3 names on the other side of the paper. The 3 things are, what are the 3 things that you are going to do after this discussion that we had today? 3 things that you want to explore more, that you want to do, actions that you can take. And then the 3 names, who are the 3 people that you're going to chat to about the circular economy, and maybe share this link of the discussion that we had today. Yes, so we are going to end this session now with a short 12-13 minute video on the circular economy that was made for 50/50, the show that I'm involved with. The narration is in Afrikaans, but it has subtitles right through. Maybe just maximize your screen so that you can see better, and all the interviews are in English. You will also see some of the panelists there that were with us today. Economy is the video will give you very nice, clear explanation of all the different aspects of it. Enjoy, and please stay in touch.
In 'n vorige episode het ons gesien dat kenners lankal waarsku dat pandemies soos COVID-19 waarskynlik gaan toeneem as ons nie ons leefstyl radikaal verander nie. En met die wêreldekonomie wat duidelik nie opgewasse is teen sulke pandemies nie, wat is ons opsies?
At a global level, this COVID crisis is going to accelerate and deepen what was already an economic crisis.
Well, what's clear is that the current economic system is undermining our ability to survive on this planet as a species.
It has exposed exactly how unsustainable humanity was.
Vere Shaba is 'n Suid-Afrikaanse ingenieur wat in groen konstruksie spesialiseer, met 'n hele lys toekennings op haar kerfstok. En al is sy 'n besigheidseienaar, glo sy nie 'n terugkeer na normaal is die oplossing nie.
Business as usual did not put people first. It did not put planet first. It put profit first. And I think that we need to change that mindset entirely anyway. So I don't want us to return to business as usual.
Deel van die gewone manier van dinge doen is 'n lineêre ekonomie. En wat beteken dit? Ons wil graag dinge hê. Waar kom dit vandaan? Die boublokkies kom uit die natuur uit, fossielbrandstowwe dryf die prosesse aan, sodat ons allerhande dinge kan maak wat gewoonlik nie baie lank hou nie, en dan word dit gemors. Dit is eenrigting verkeer, lineêr, wieg tot graf, waar ons vat uit die natuur uit, meer en meer vir onsself bymekaar maak, en nou sit ons in 'n groeiende hoop gemors.
That's not a sustainable model. It was going to crash eventually.
Deel van die probleem is die idee dat industrie wins kan maak sonder om verantwoordelikheid te neem vir die skade wat hulle aan die omgewing aanrig.
Those extra costs of cleaning up the environment and replacing resources you've used, those costs are not taken into account in the normal supply and demand transaction. They are seen as externalities.
Negatiewe eksternaliteite is kostes wat 'n derde party affekteer wat nie gekies het om daardie koste aan te gaan nie.
It is driven by a false premise to start with, which is a holy mantra of GDP, a gross domestic product.
GDP takes every single financial transaction within the economy and adds it up.
Insluitende motorongelukke, droogtes en die vernietiging van woude.
This is the measurement of wealth that drives all our government's policies and so on.
We have had good economic growth rates around the world for a couple of decades, except for 2009. And in the process, we've destroyed the environment within which we have lived, and the rich have got richer and the poor have got poorer.
Terwyl industrie negatiewe effekte afskryf as eksternaliteite, is dit gewone mense wat dikwels die prys moet betaal vir die winste wat hulle maak.
If you look at things like air pollution in some of these mining towns and coal towns where people are breathing in air that's so toxic that they're dying at a young age.
Look at what that costs the economy. You find those externalities were not factored in.
How much does a life cost? And how much does that life cost if it's your mother or if it's your spouse or if it's your child?
Maar solank ons die idee koop dat ons meer en meer goed nodig het, voer ons hierdie stelsel.
The idea of the linear economy that you need to consume and dispose is actually just consumerism mindset.
Deel van hierdie denkwyse is om produkte doelbewus te ontwerp om nie lank te hou nie. Dit is 'n taktiek wat ingeboude veroudering genoem word.
And that's really propagated by corporates trying to get us to keep buying their products, keep using their things, so that they can keep getting a profit.
We need a different measurement of economic and social wealth.
We have to make sure that the right conversations start to take place about an alternative economic theory.
Daar is 'n model wat al oor 'n baie lang tyd vervolmaak is. Die siklusse van die natuur, waar meeste van die prosesse deur sonenergie aangedryf word en 'n verstommende hoeveelheid dinge gemaak word sonder enige gemors, want alles word afgebreek as voedingsstowwe wat weer die boublokkies raak om nuwe dinge te maak. Onthou ons model van die lineêre ekonomie. Kan ons die punte van daardie lyn bymekaar bring sodat al ons gemors die boublokkies raak vir nuwe dinge wat ons maak? Is dit moontlik om 'n kringekonomie te skep waar dinge soos besoedeling en ongelykheid en afval en allerlei ander gemors werklik iets van die verlede raak? Wel, daar is leiers en briljante breine reg oor die wêreld wat verseker so dink. En 'n klompie van hulle het verlede jaar in Helsinki, Finland bymekaar gekom om te praat oor hoe ons dit kan doen. Ek en Verre is deur die Finse ambassade in Pretoria uitgenooi na hierdie kringekonomie forum waar die kwessies eerlik en direk aangespreek is.
Around externalizing all the environmental impacts that society has to deal with.
You should no longer be willing to accept that these costs are sort of dissipated into the atmosphere somewhere and somebody else or some other generation has to deal with them, Bill.
These problems are not only affect the environment, they also affect the people living in the environment.
If you use less energy, you will save money. If you use less water, you'll save money. Generate less waste, you'll save money.
Finland is een van die eerste lande ter wêreld wat 'n definitiewe plan uitgewerk het om na 'n kringekonomie oor te skakel. En die hoofstad Helsinki neem die voortou hier.
The city has decided to be carbon neutral by the end of 2035.
En deel van die strategie is dat dit teen 2025 heeltemal onnodig moet wees vir enige iemand in Helsinki om 'n privaat kar te besit.
You can pretty much get anywhere in the city with like the public transport. I just like tell my parents, yeah, I'm going out with my friends, and then I either take a bus, tram, metro.
Hulle eksperimenteer selfs met elektriese robotbussies wat self kan bestuur.
In the districts of Kalasatama, we already now have an autonomous bus driving around the blocks, and that way we hopefully may reduce the amount of private cars in the city.
Nog 'n manier is om mense te help om anders te dink oor vervoer. Jy het nie 'n kar nodig nie. Jy het die diens nodig wat 'n kar jou gee om mobiel te wees.
You buy your mobility just like you buy your mobile subscription. You have your SMS, you have your data, you have everything over there. It's putting all of those services, the public transports and bikes and cars and all the shares that you can find in a simple app.
Wanneer Axel na sy sportoefening toe gaan of vir vriende wil gaan kuier, tik hy net sy bestemming in en die beste roetes met al die opsies van enige kombinasie van publieke vervoer wat hy kan gebruik, word vir hom gegee. En in plaas daarvan om vir elkeen afsonderlik te betaal, is daar verskillende kontrak of betaal soos jy gebruik opsies. Nes 'n selfoonkontrak.
Or you can go really the whole thing where you have everything. Just use buses and taxis and cars and bikes and everything you can find without kind of a golden key to your city. So everything you see, it's all yours.
Dit gee jou al die voordele en vryheid wat 'n eie kar jou sou gee, sonder die kostes, besoedeling en komplikasies van privaat besit. Helsinki soek gelyktydige oplossings vir al die groot probleme wat uit 'n lineêre ekonomie spruit.
The city has invested in a vacuum pipeline waste collecting system.
Inwoners kry spesiale elektroniese skyfies waarmee hulle die regte deurtjies kan oopsluit om verskillende tipes afval vir herwinning te deponeer. Omdat elke huishouding se skyfie geregistreer is, kan die stad presiese inligting oor die afval wat geproduseer word bymekaar maak.
We know how much and how often different types of waste is produced, and this way we have the ability to see how the behavior of people living in the district might change during the years.
Al die afval word na 'n sentrale punt gesuig en niks eindig op 'n vullishoop nie. Wat nie herwinbaar is nie, word gebruik as brandstof om elektrisiteit op te wek of selfs biodiesel te vervaardig. Maar maak hierdie idees ekonomies sin, veral nou en veral in Suid-Afrika.
The green economy has got the potential to create millions of jobs specifically for the unskilled and specifically for the youth. And that's something that the UN has actually reported about.
Behalwe vir werksgeleenthede is gelyke toegang tot ander geleenthede ook 'n belangrike beginsel in die kringekonomie.
Seeing that some of the principles within the circular economy is to not own as much as possible, but to have a lot of shared services. One of the really good examples is the Oodi Library in Helsinki.
Hoekom 'n biblioteek beperk tot boeke? By Oodi kan jy behalwe vir boeke ook rekenaars gebruik, en die internet, en kantoorspasie, en naaimasjiene, en 3D-drukkers, en rekenaarspeletjies, en 'n klankatelier, alles gratis. In plaas daarvan dat groot hoeveelhede materiaal en energie gebruik word vir duisende mense om elkeen 'n stuk toerusting te besit wat meeste van die tyd lê in stofvergader, het almal nou toegang daartoe. Ook die wat dit nooit sou kon bekostig nie.
So now you suddenly have this public space where you can come in, share ideas, get some books, grab a coffee, and just again come together as humanity instead of living in our linear model.
En as jy dink die kringekonomie is 'n Europese idee, dink weer.
I think that there has always been a similarity between the circular economy principles and our philosophy as those born in Africa, because circularity has always been inclusive.
Verbeel jou 'n wêreld waar niemand die verantwoordelikheid vir hulle gemors op ander afskuif nie. Waar ons ekonomie niks uitsluit nie. Nie mense nie, nie die natuur nie, nie ons verantwoordelikhede nie. Waar ons besef alles is maar deel van die groot sirkel van die lewe.
The South Africa that I would dream of is one that is socially just, that is environmentally responsible, and still has inclusive economic growth.